Yo, it's your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, back at you with a new video. Today is Tuesday, September 30th, 2025, with your boy Ryan and the Northwest Sports Fanatics. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button either now or on your way out. Donate to your boy if you can. Cash App $ ORION NWSF or the YouTube Super Chat right here. We got the National League wild card game number 1, the Cincinnati Reds versus the Los Angeles Dodgers, and they waited as long as they could. Obviously, the Yankees are rallying in the bottom of the ninth against the Red Sox, but we are going to get started here on ESPN2 if you're looking where the game is at. And let me get into the starting lineups, take a quick look at the thumb, and happy Tuesday, everyone. On the thumb, on the left, the star, Ellie De La Cruz. And on the right, one of the best players in the game, Shohei Ohtani. Now let's get into starting lineups here first for the visiting Cincinnati Reds. Leading off for the Reds in center field, TJ Friedl. Batting second, playing right field, NLWC Marte. Batting third, DHing Miguel Andujar. Batting cleanup, batting fourth, left fielder Austin Hayes. Batting fifth, playing first base, Spencer Steer. Batting sixth, playing shortstop, Ellie De La Cruz. Batting seventh, catching today, Tyler Stevenson. Batting eighth, third baseman, Ke'Bryan Hayes. And batting ninth, second baseman, Matt McLean. And on the mound for the Dodgers is Blake Snell. First pitch from Snell to Friedl. High and inside, 1-0 count. Cody in the building, what's good? One-0 pitch in there for a strike. High and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Snell to Friedl. 1-1 pitch. Big swing and a miss by Friedl. TJ Friedl in the box and Blake Snell on the mound. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Pitches low and into the dirt there. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Snell to Friedl. Two-two pitch. Big swing and a miss, and got him. Nice punch out there for Blake Snell, and that is 1 away. Next up is right fielder NLWC Marte. First pitch to Marte, crushes it into left field, but should stay in play, and it is 2 away. Next up, DHing in the 3-hole, Miguel Andujar. So far, so good here for Blake Snell early. First pitch to Andujar, pops up, and should be a routine play there, and it is, and an easy 1-2-3 inning there for the Dodgers. And now let's get into the starting lineups for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Leading off for the Dodgers at DH, Shohei Ohtani. Batting second, playing shortstop, Mookie Betts. Batting third, playing first base, Freddie Freeman. Batting cleanup, batting fourth, third baseman, Max Muncy. Batting fifth, right fielder, Teoscar Hernandez. Batting sixth, playing second base, Tommy Edman. Batting seventh, playing center field, Andy Pajes. Batting eighth, playing left field, Kike Hernandez. And batting ninth, catching today for the Dodgers, Ben Rortvedt. And on the mound for the Cincinnati Reds, Hunter Green. Yeah, I watched every single game that has progressed earlier today. I saw Skubal with 14 Ks. Ramirez ended up getting a triple off an error to get them in position to be able to tie the game up, but they weren't able to bring him home, and he got caught in between the base paths there at the end of the game. Cubs with Seiya Suzuki and company, they got the job done there against the Padres, and obviously Red Sox and Yankees. Yankees having bases loaded and not being able to get the job done. And again, if there is a kryptonite to the Yankees, it is the Red Sox. There is no doubt about that. So it's crazy how you can end up getting 3 hits in a row and then you are still not able to win the game there late. But again, if you can get the pop up, the force out, the double play at the end, sometimes that's all you need. Making his way into the box, one of the greatest players to ever play, Shohei Ohtani. On deck, shortstop Mookie Betts, and batting third, first baseman Freddie Freeman. All 3 of them will be first ballot Hall of Famers. See how Hunter Green does here. First pitch, high and inside, four-seam fastball, 101 from Hunter Green, bringing the heat early, 1-0 count. Yeah, crazy. I watched every single matchup, all 4 games today. It's not just me being a Mariner fan. I am a very hardcore MLB fan, and I watched every game from beginning to end. And again, was impressed with Skubal. Obviously, they rallied late, the Guardians, with Ramirez getting a triple off an error with no outs, but they weren't able to get him home. Cubs, got the job done with Seiya Suzuki and company beating the Padres at home, which I figured they would at Wrigley. And Yankees, they had a chance. But again, you can't just have Volpe the only guy that ends up homering for you. Guys like Aaron Judge, you have to step up in the biggest moments, and it can't be just in the regular season. And again, they did end up rallying late, with 3 straight hits to have bases loaded and no outs, but they still couldn't bring home runs. And, again, if there is a kryptonite for the Yankees, it definitely is the Boston Red Sox. And there was a lot of people that ended up picking the Red Sox over the Yankees. And again, it makes you kind of wonder if you're looking at the matchup head to head. Again, they, match up really well. I mean, every matchup that we had today is pretty even, probably besides you would think maybe this matchup, unless Elly De La Cruz and company end up scoring early and often to give the Dodgers a little bit of a challenge. But again, it's pretty 50-50 in those other 3 matchups. This one is probably, 70-30 Dodgers for right reasons. But again, we'll see how the Reds compete here today. 2-0 pitch in there for a strike to Ohtani. Yeah, and again, I have started to see a few more people taking the Sox over the Yankees. Back, see ya. And Shohei Ohtani does what Aaron Judge couldn't. He goes yard, see ya. 1-0 Dodgers. And again, there's certain guys that are great during the regular season, and then there's guys that are great in the regular and the postseason, and you're looking at them right here. Showtime, Shohei Ohtani with a big solo jack into right field, giving them a early 1-0 lead, 375 feet. And Hunter Green shaking his head in disbelief. Next up, shortstop Mookie Betts. Yeah, well, I think that's pretty common. I mean, unless you are a Yankee fan, in general, I think most people are kind of rooting against them. Unless you're a fan of Judge or you're a fan of the Yankees, people are going to be rooting against them just like they root against the Astros. Obviously there's going to be some fans that are rooting for the Dodgers to lose as well. When you end up being great, year in and year out, even if you don't make the World Series, obviously people want to see some new teams. But, I think Dodgers and Cubs are a little bit more likable than the Yankees and the Astros overall. But, not a common thing everywhere. But I imagine there was quite a few people that hooted and hollered after the Yankees had bases loaded, no outs, and didn't even bring home a run. Nice job by Mookie Betts with that little dribbler. And again, anytime you can end up getting just a little bloop in between left field and center in the gap, you're going to take that. Nice job by Mookie Betts. Next up, another first ballot Hall of Famer, first baseman Freddie Freeman. See if Freeman can bring that electricity. Yeah, but also too, in these kind of games, you need Judge to go yard. Again, you're not going to be able to have him not go yard against the Red Sox and thinking that you're going to end up winning the game. For a team like that knows you inside and out, that kind of has your number, as of late, it's like, the hitting, here and there, and obviously starting pitching was fantastic. Bullpen did blow it for them, but they definitely needed to score more than one. I mean, you can't tell me, that you think you can win a game by only scoring one. And the games were low scoring, early on, right? We had a 2-1 game in Detroit with Scooball with 14 Ks, 3-1 with the Cubs, and then a 3-1 final with Boston. But again, scoring one run, you're not going to beat anybody. You're going to have to hopefully try to get to that 3 to 5 range if possible. And Freeman pops up, back to the warning track, and that is 1 away. Natman in the building, what's good? Yeah, Chase Elliott getting that dub at Kansas, that was awesome. Definitely watched that as well. Next up, cleanup hitter, third baseman, Max Muncy. Yeah, he did have a hit, for that single late, but again, if you got a player, like a Judge or an Ohtani or a Cal Raleigh or a Kyle Schwarber, you got to have those guys go off in the playoffs often. And again, for other players, single here, single there, that's great. But, when you're Ohtani and Judge, sometimes you got to lean on your superstars, and more times than not, they have to come up and, go yard or, get that big RBI. And unfortunately, Judge was not able to do that, today. And it was kind of crazy. Volpe, a guy that struggled all year, was the one that ended up homering. But, Shohei obviously got off to a fast start here with a homer, and we'll see what we get from him later in the matchup as well. That one's fouled off by Muncy. No balls and 2 strikes from Green to Muncy. Bottom of the first, 1-0 Dodger lead. Yeah, he does underperform in the playoffs pretty regularly, Aaron Judge, unfortunately. I mean, I do love Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Cal Raleigh, and Kyle Schwarber this year. They've been absolutely amazing. But again, some guys are built more for the regular season, and sometimes in the postseason, you don't get the best version of them, whether that be a minor injury or just timing, or just not in a good rhythm or just not coming up in the clutch. But that is true. Judge has been a little bit of a letdown based on what he does in the regular season. Sometimes it doesn't translate in the postseason. I would agree with that comment, especially if you've been watching baseball the last few years. Now, they were obviously good enough to make the World Series last year, but this Yankee team this year is definitely not as good as last year's team. I think that's pretty clear. And down goes Muncy on strikes. Nice pitch there by Hunter Green. And that is 2 away. Down goes Muncy. Next up is right fielder Teoscar Hernandez. And Teoscar with a nice little dribbler into left field. And in between Hayes and De La Cruz there. Next up is Tommy Edman. Dodgers looking good here early on, but obviously this is the most lopsided matchup. Even if it was the Dodgers and the Mets, Dodgers would still be heavily favored. The other 3 series are really 50-50 in my opinion. The Guardians and the Tigers, 50-50. Padres, Cubs, 50-50. And obviously Red Sox, Yankees. I mean, if you're just looking at the lineup and how they match up, it's pretty 50-50. This is probably 70-30, Dodgers. It's going to take, Elly De La Cruz to like homer twice, and some other players to step up for them to be able to compete. And on top of that, they're going to need excellent pitching out of Green. And he's already given up a homer to Ohtani. So we'll see how it goes. But, we would assume, the Dodgers will, probably find a way to, make it a little bit easier than some of the other teams with their victories early this afternoon. Pitch fouled off. No balls and 2 strikes from Green to Edman. Flying Monk in the building. What's good? Yeah, I watched it. I watched that full game. 3 straight hits in a row, and they had no outs, and they couldn't even score 1. But again, if you end up hitting, a pop-up or a ground out or a crucial double play, and sometimes, baseball can be cruel, especially when you think you're going to make a comeback. And most teams that get bases loaded with no outs, they score a minimum of 1, right? But sometimes you score none, and then you end up losing the game. Big swing and a miss, and down goes Edman. Nice punch out there by Green. And now we go to the Reds here in the top of the 2nd inning, 1-0 Los Angeles. But Shohei Ohtani showing that he can do it in the regular season and he can do it in the postseason and bring in the Dodgers with a 1-0 early lead. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's see who's up next here in the top of the 2nd for the Cincinnati Reds. Next up for the Reds, in the cleanup spot, left fielder Austin Hayes. Batting 2nd, first baseman in the 5-hole, Spencer Steer. And batting 3rd in the 6-hole, shortstop superstar, must-see TV, Elly De La Cruz. Tridents up. Let's go M's. We got to wait till Saturday, but I'm definitely enjoying all of this playoff baseball. And again, we probably match up a little bit better, against the Tigers, than we do against the Guardians, just based on, how they went on their collapse. But again, it's going to be hard either way, whether it be Detroit, or if it ends up being Cleveland and they come back and win the next 2 games. Obviously, I felt like the Cubs had the advantage on the Padres. The Ramon Laureano injury was very key, and as well as, some of the other individuals that they've had banged up as of late. Padres and Yankees aren't as good as they were last year and the year before. But again, the Padres are definitely capable of winning 2 games in a row, so we'll see how that plays out. And, Red Sox, Yankees, they hate each other with a passion. And again, Yankees need to do better than just putting up a 1, especially if they want to advance against Boston. And, I was a little surprised to see how many people that picked the Red Sox before the series even started. I'm not sure if that just has to do with hate for Judge and hate for the Yankees and just wanting them to lose or hoping that they're going to lose. But Boston has been playing some pretty good ball, as of late. And the key to actually have Yoshida come in and pinch hit for them to get the big RBI, that was really the difference. If they don't do that, who knows? Maybe the Yankees do win the game like 2-1. So, very clutch, moves there, by the manager for the Red Sox. And again, it's nice to be able to see teams that were bad or not in the playoffs, Mariners and Red Sox. And now you see both of them that are contenders. And again, you just never know how things are going to change from one year to the next. First pitch in there for a strike from Blake Snell. And then we have a slow dribbler to 3rd, throw to 1st. And that is 1 away. Good defense there. And it gives Blake Snell an opportunity to shine here tonight. Next up is first baseman Spencer Steer. 0-1 pitch. And that's crushed into left field, but that will stay in play. And that is 2 away. Kike is there. You can always count on his defense. And he definitely steps up offensively as well. Next up is Elly De La Cruz. I'm not sure if I would put the Yankees and Cowboys in the same category. Yankees, traditionally are better year in and year out than Dallas is. Now, Dallas did play a hell of a game against the Packers, getting that tie. That definitely opened up some eyes. No Micah Parsons, no CeeDee Lamb, and they were able to compete with Green Bay. I was actually hoping that they would beat them. But I can kind of see your point, but the Yankees, you got to give them a little bit more credit than them being the Cowboys. Cowboys haven't been relevant since 1995. Yankees have been relevant since that point. So, they made the World Series last year. So, they didn't win it, but it's not like we talk about the Cowboys making Super Bowls or even the NFC Championship games. So, but both fan bases are hated. There's no denying that. 0-2 pitch, low and at the knees. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Elly De La Cruz. But yeah, if we're talking about, strongly dislike, hate, or hope that those particular teams lose, there's definitely a lot of those. 2-2 pitch. And that is strike 3 on Elly De La Cruz. Let's go to the bottom of the second inning as he strikes out looking there. And Ellie's got to be a factor if they're going to be able to keep it somewhat close here this afternoon/evening. Snell is wheeling and dealing. See who's up next here for the Dodgers in the bottom of the second inning. Next up for the Dodgers in the 7-hole, fielder Andy Pages. Batting second in the 8-hole, left fielder, Mr. Utility player that can do it through and through, the Taysom Hill, the Swiss Army knife of the Dodgers, Kike Hernandez. And batting third, catcher for the Dodgers today in the 9-hole, Ben Rortvedt. And on the mound for the Reds, Hunter Green. Yeah, very, very scary, and on top of that, he ended up almost breaking the record as Sandy Koufax, of 15 Ks. Again, anytime you can end up getting anything over 10 nowadays, it's amazing. And then you start going into that 12, 13, 14 range. But again, they did have a chance late. Jose Ramirez ended up getting a triple off an error, and they had no outs. But they weren't able to bring him home. He got caught in between the base paths, and that was kind of the end of the Guardians in their rally. So, it shows you can be, sitting in great position with a runner at third or a runner at first, second, and third, like the Yankees with no outs, thinking that you're going to be able to score a run or two and get it to extra innings or maybe even win in the bottom of the ninth. But baseball can be cruel. And again, you have to make sure that, you're putting yourself in the best position to win early. So that way, you don't have a potential disaster late. And again, all the matchups were pretty low scoring. The most that we ended up having was a 3-1 victory by the Cubs and the Red Sox, 2-1 for the Tigers. Obviously, pitching was fantastic in that matchup this morning that I watched at 10 a.m. And again, so far, we're going to get a pretty good pitching duel, at least early, here with Snell and Green. But obviously, the Dodger hitters, top to bottom, 1 through 9, are much better and deeper than the Reds. And again, I think the Mets would have matched up a little bit better, but they went on a meltdown, and the Reds earned it and got the last spot. And, hopefully Elly De La Cruz will make it interesting. So that way it ends up not being like, 8-0, ass whooping. First pitch there into Pages for a ball. 1-0 pitch. And Pages, a little slow dribbler. Elly De La Cruz, throw to first. And that is 1 away. Good defense there by Elly. Next up is Kike Hernandez. Yeah, if if Jose Ramirez just would have stayed at third, they might have been able to tie that game up. And, if he just was a little bit more patient and closer to third base rather than being in the middle between third and home and getting caught in between, maybe they would have been able to come back, and win either in that inning or extras. But, defense wins games, defense wins championships. And again, there has been a lot of bugaboos with runners on the base paths, obviously in 2025. And a nice little bloop single there by Kike Hernandez. Nice job by Kike. Next up is catcher Ben Rortvedt. Bottom of the second inning, runner at first, Kike with a nice bloop single. And again, Kike is always going to bring out his best at the end of the season within the last, usually 10, 15 games, and then especially in the postseason. For a guy that normally only bats 180 to 200, he can really ramp it up and get closer to 250 to 300 in the postseason. And he definitely has been a factor, for that team winning offensively and defensively. For a guy that you normally don't focus a whole lot on. You're focused on Shohei, you're focused on Mookie, Freddie, Teoscar, Muncy when he's healthy. Kike is at the bottom of the list for priority, but he definitely does the damage when he gets a chance. Rortvedt tries to bunt, and that one goes behind the plate, foul. Yeah, I think we can beat either one. I think we match up better with the Tigers than we do with the Guardians. It feels like Steven Kwan and Jose Ramirez, sometimes they have, the Mariners' number. But again, it doesn't really matter. We play well against elite pitching, even against Skubal. So, I don't really care who we go against. I feel confident we can beat either one. Little flip to first, and down goes Rortvedt, and that is 2 away. Next up for the Dodgers, with already a solo dinger to right, Shohei Ohtani, bringing that electricity. Absolutely. I mean, you could argue that the Mariners might be even better. Yeah, we did get swept by them at the end of the year when we didn't have our best lineup, but again, most people are taking the Mariners as the favored team to represent the American League in the World Series. Now we have to actually earn it, and we have to, beat these teams, really good teams, Tigers with Skubal or the Guardians with Jose Ramirez. And then after that, we'll see if Boston ends up beating New York and they play the Blue Jays. We'll see who ends up winning that. And then if we can find a way to continue to move on, ALDS, ALCS, and then World Series, we'll see where it goes. But the Dodgers are, in my opinion, one of the strongest, right there with the Phillies, who probably are the strongest, with the Brewers at the top, Dodgers right next to them, and then maybe the Cubs below the Dodgers. I would say that those would be the teams. And then Padres after them, and then obviously, if you're looking in the National League, the Reds definitely have to be the worst team out of all the teams that are in the playoffs. And even if the Mets were in, at least they have Lindor, Pete Alonso, Juan Soto. That would have been a little bit more, I think, exciting matchup-wise because they have better players over there. But obviously, you can't go 45-24 and then almost flip that record in the second half and think you're going to make the playoffs. And the Tigers have to be lucky that they even got in after their meltdown. But when you got a guy like Skubal, arguably the best pitcher, anytime he pitches, you're going to have a chance. Three-two pitch, and that is strike 3 looking, and down goes Shohei Ohtani. End of the second inning, 1-0 Dodgers. Yeah, but if you look, at the rosters, top to bottom, the Blue Jays roster is great. Obviously, Red Sox and Yankees are going at it, Guardians and Tigers. But, I mean, if you're really looking at roster, obviously us and the Blue Jays have the bye. But I don't know how many people really think that the Blue Jays are going to advance. There is quite a few people, at least from what I've read and what I've seen in brackets, that people are thinking that if the Red Sox get past the Yankees, and it looks like they're going to have a good chance to do that, that they might use that momentum and beat the Blue Jays. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if that happens. If you get hot at the right time, you can, be a lower team and still beat some of the, upper teams as well. So, who knows? I mean, we might end up getting a Mariner Red Sox ALCS to go to the World Series. I know that kind of sounds crazy, for, Red Sox fans and Mariner fans, because obviously it's been pretty rough for both of our squads. And again, with the Red Sox normally being kind of towards the bottom of the division, either last place or second to last. And I did say at the beginning of the year that I thought that they would be much better than the previous year. And obviously the addition of Bregman and, Crochet helped. And again, they're definitely knocking on the door on trying to be able to make a deep run just like us in Seattle. So I'm definitely excited about that. Let's go to the top of the third inning and see who's up next here for the Reds. Next up for the Reds in the 7-hole, catcher Tyler Stevenson. Batting second, former Pirate, third baseman Ke'Bryan Hayes. And batting third in the 9-hole, second baseman Matt McLean. On the mound for the Dodgers will be Blake Snell. Yeah, you and me both. I mean, the cheapest tickets were $400 for, standing room only and whatnot. And that's a little bit out of my price range. And that's only for one ticket. So obviously, if me and my best friend were able to cop tickets for, like, let's say $200 or $250, we would have probably done that, But again, once it starts getting into the $400 to $1,000, range, $400 to $800, $400 to $900 for a seat, unless you're rich, that's definitely out of the question. So. Yeah, I think with me, I don't mind. I just got to get the fucking dub against the Guardians or the Tigers, and then just go from there. And then we'll see if the Red Sox, Yankees, if Red Sox move on and play the Blue Jays. We'll see if Toronto can hold its ground. They got a lot of good players, and George Springer has had a comeback type of year compared to the year previous. And Bo Bichette, good player. Same thing with Vlad Jr. So. We'll wait and see. Pitch in there for a strike. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Snell to Stevenson. Two balls and 2 strikes from Blake Snell. See what we get here. Castillo is going to be doing better lately over, like Bryce Miller, who might go into the pen. Big swing and a miss there, and down he goes. Down goes Stevenson on strikes. 1 away. But, yeah, we wouldn't want Castillo to start. With everything on the line, there's no way. Again, like he's like our 4th best pitcher. Definitely if Wu is ready to go, Wu, then Kirby, even Gilbert would be more trustworthy than Castillo. So, if you're a big Castillo guy, that's cool, but he's probably not going to be on the team next year. And there's reasons why, based on how his production has been going down every year since we got him. If you actually look at the analytics and the stats of every single season after we brought him in 2022, which he was good then, from the Reds, but in 2023 and 2024, dramatically worse. And obviously he had a moment in 2025 where he was pretty hot, but he's very kind of hot and cold. And I wouldn't trust him pitching fucking game 1. If you have confidence in him, good for you, but that absolutely not. You got 3 other guys that are much better, especially at home. He's our 4th best pitcher. There's no way that we would have him over Wu unless Wu was hurt. But even if Wu was hurt, I would rather go with Kirby and Gilbert than Castillo. If you look at his stats and whatnot. So, but again, if you like him, that's on you. But it's not going to hurt my feelings for him not be on the team anymore next year. Same thing with Garver, and obviously Gino is getting older. Little slow dribbler, throw to first. And that is 2 away. Down goes Ke'Bryan Hayes. But I do hope that Castillo pitches well whenever he gets a chance, because we're going to need him to, especially if they move Bryce Miller to the pen and we go to 4-man rotation. And it sounds like that's what they're probably going to do. Next up is Matt McLain. I mean, unless they decide to go with Bryce over Castillo, but I think that would be a mistake. The one player Castillo is better than at this moment is Bryce Miller, and probably Emerson Hancock and Logan Evans. In play by McLain down that third base line, all the way back to the wall, and a beautiful double by Matt McLain. Let him know, TJ. Yeah, but if we don't match up with the Yankees this year, there's going to be a time in the future that we will be able to match up with them. Again, it's not like the Mariners are a flash in the pan, and this is going to be the last year that we are going to be competing. It feels like moving forward, we should be able to hopefully make the playoffs in consecutive years. And who knows, maybe this is the first year of, maybe a 5-year run where we make it every year. Maybe we don't win the division every year, but, we might be able to get in every year, wild card or divisional winners. So, all we got to do is just, try to be as consistent as possible. 1-0 pitch to Friedel. High and inside. 2 balls and no strikes from Snell to Friedel. Two 2-1 pitch. In there for a strike. 2 balls, 1 strike from Snell to Friedel. 2-1 pitch, high and inside. Count now is 3 balls and 1 strike from Snell to Friedel. Yeah, I'll agree with Logan being a little shaky, but again, you have to go back and look at all the home runs Castillo has given up this year as well. And, I don't have a whole lot of faith in Miller, and obviously Castillo and Logan are a little shaky. And then I think Kirby and Wu are the most trustworthy at this point. But, we'll see how it goes. All we got to do is just find a way to win and just keep advancing. And, hopefully we can make the World Series and we'll see what happens. But we got to take it one series at a time, one game at a time. Because you got to think, who's most likely to give up like 2, 3, 4 home runs, and that's usually Miller and Castillo. Gilbert, sometimes it'll be like 1 or 2, but not like 3 or 4. And same thing with Kirby and Wu. It's like you might give up 1, but then they kind of settle in. But again, I don't really feel 100% confident with Logan either because he got injured. Obviously with him and Miller and Kirby, when you have injuries early in the year, they're not going to look as sharp. So 1-1 pitch, big swing and a miss, low and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Snell to Noelvi Marte. Bottom of the 3rd inning, runners at first and second with 2 outs, 1-0 Dodger lead. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and down he goes. And that was a good opportunity for the Reds to tie the game up. But again, Blake Snell, when he gets locked in, very tough to beat. And another strikeout for Snell. Let's go to the bottom of the 3rd and see who's up next here for the Dodgers. Go to the bottom of the 3rd inning. Next up, 1-for-1, shortstop Mookie Betts. Batting second, 0-for-1, first baseman Freddie Freeman. And batting third, 0-for-1 with a K, third baseman Max Muncy. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. And obviously, as we're, waiting for the Mariners on Saturday, we have to do some, kind of filler content. And obviously, I would have done any of the 4 games, whatever the last game was, and it just so happens it was the Dodgers. So we're going to do the game today. We'll do the game tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Obviously, if the Dodgers win the first 2, then the series is done. It's only 2 out of 3. And then we'll see what is available on Wednesday. Thursday, same thing. We'll see what's available, whether it be, another wild card game, or we potentially might do the Rams and Niners for Thursday night football to kind of mix it up. Same thing goes on Friday. We'll see what, we have entail on that particular day. And then once we get into Saturday, then we can focus on the Mariners on Saturday and Sunday. Obviously, the Seahawks and Bucks are going to be going at it. And, I want to be able to do the Oregon Ducks in Indiana, as well as the Seahawks and the Buccaneer game with the Mariners, but I think they're going to overlap. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do, all of that. I'll be watching everything, but we're obviously going to be focusing on Mariner playoff baseball. Again, the Guardians or the Tigers, whoever wins that particular matchup. So, and then we'll just kind of play it by ear as we continue to go on this playoff push. First pitch from Green to Mookie Betts, low and away, 1-0 count. One-0 pitch, fouled off, low and away. 1 ball, 1 strike to Mookie Betts. Hunter Green on the mound. Mookie Betts in the box. 1-1 pitch, low and away with that splitter. 88 miles an hour off speed there by Green. 2 balls and 1 strike with nobody on and no outs. 1-0 Dodger lead with a Shohei Ohtani home run, which I was kind of hoping that he would hit one, obviously, if I'm going to be, doing these matchups with the Dodgers. And it's just kind of a shame that so many of those other games were on so early. But again, it's just trying to be able to get the most people here that would be available. Obviously, if I do a stream at 10 a.m., there's only going to be so many people that would be available. So 2-2 pitch in play, and Betts flies out to center, and that is 1 away. Next up for Hunter Green, 3-hole hitter playing first base, Freddie Freeman. First pitch in there to Freddie Freeman, takes a strike looking right down the middle, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, 4-seam fastball, 101 by Green inside, 1 ball and 1 strike to Freddie Freeman. 1-1 pitch, takes a strike looking with that splitter right there on the line, off speed, 88 miles an hour. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. Bottom of the 3rd inning, 1-0 Dodger lead. Definitely an exciting time when you can get the wild card games going. You got baseball on all day, 10 a.m., at noon, at 3, and then obviously this last game at 6. So looking forward to watching the games tomorrow and seeing how those play out and seeing if we end up having teams advance as early as tomorrow. Pitch is fouled off right down the middle with the 4-seam fastball from Green. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. Yeah, Green does throw the heat. You see, when he's on with his 4-seam fastball, it's like 100 to 101. If he's throwing something off speed with like the slider or the splitter, that's like 87 to 92. So definitely he's got the repertoire and the pitches to make this game pretty close, but he's going to need the Reds players, to be able to back him. Other than, Ellie De La Cruz, he's going to need a home run here and there, and a couple guys in a row to go back to back to back with hits if they're going to keep up and keep pace with Los Angeles on the road. And four-seam fastball ends up being outside, and that is a walk. Freddie Freeman takes his bag at first. And next up is third baseman Max Muncy. Yeah, I think the parity is great. I feel like the playoffs this year, I mean, the only difference is that maybe if we had the Mets in over the Reds, at least for like competitiveness, with Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, and Juan Soto, that would have been a little bit more eyeballs on this particular series. Not to say that the Reds are terrible, but I don't think anyone anticipated really the Reds making it until like maybe the last 2 weeks where they were talked about, where they might have a chance with the Diamondbacks since the Mets were reeling. But, are the Reds really a playoff team? I mean, they're definitely by far the weakest, but I would agree. It definitely feels kind of like the NFL when you go to the playoffs where, anybody can beat anyone. It kind of seems like it's up for grabs, except for maybe this series. This is maybe the only one that's 70-30. Everything else is kind of 50-50. And then when we get into the next round, it could go 50-50 as well. Tigers versus M's or Red Sox, Blue Jays. I mean, no one really knows, how it's going to play out. And again, we obviously understand how good Milwaukee and Philly is as well in the National League. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how it gets progressively harder and harder and more competitive and more well-matched teams battling it out to represent the American League and the National League. I agree. 2-1 pitch, low and at the knees. Count now is 3 balls and 1 strike to Max Muncy. 3-1 pitch and another walk. And that's a little rare for Hunter Green. Freddie Freeman takes his bag and goes from first now to second. Muncy with the walk goes to first. And next up is Teoscar Hernandez. And if you're the Reds right here, you need a slow dribbler right up the middle to get a double play to get out of this jam. Otherwise, it's going to turn into 2-0, 3-0, potentially 4-0, depending on how many more batters go up to the plate against Hunter Green. Bottom of the third inning, 1-0 Dodgers. Teoscar Hernandez in the box, and we have a good mound visit here, strategy-wise. And they're hoping that they can get Teoscar to chase, on a slow dribbler, maybe low and away. And we'll see if Hunter Green can get out of this jam for the Reds here early. First pitch, low and away, 99 miles an hour with that four-seam fastball. Missing the plate by a few feet, 1-0 count. And that big wild pitch there. Freeman to third. And obviously when you get wild pitches like that, all the way back to the backstop, not ideal. Easy bags there, second and third. Come on, Green, you got to be better. And there was no chance to get that ball. And Teoscar back, see ya! And this one might already be over. Teoscar Hernandez, 3-run jack. Freeman and Muncy scored, 4-0 Dodgers. And again, if you're going to hang one right down the middle, you can't do that against the Dodgers. And see ya! 4-0 Los Angeles. Now, the Reds obviously are going to have a chance to battle, but it's not like the Dodgers are going to be more than likely done at just 4 runs. More than likely, they got more in the tank. So, big homer. Teoscar has been a G when he was on Toronto. He was a G on Seattle. And obviously winning the home run derby last year carried them into the playoffs. And again, Teoscar Hernandez, another great player for the Los Angeles Dodgers. 4-0 LA. soon as I saw that pitch, I was like, uh-oh, that's gone. And he crushed it. Next up is Tommy Edman. But let's be honest. I mean, Reds or Mets or Diamondbacks, none of them would have been able to beat the Dodgers. You know, even if people think that the Dodgers are the third best in the National League, if you like the Phillies and the Brewers more, that's fine. And Edman going long, going deep in right field, and gone. And look at that. They are on a home run derby. Teoscar hits a 3-run blast. Tommy Edman says, hey, don't forget about me. I was a hero last year also. See ya. 5-0 Dodgers. Sorry, Reds. Just not your day. But again, the same thing would happen to the Mets and the Diamondbacks. We know that. Next up, center fielder Andy Pages. I believe we had someone look that up. I think like early November. I believe. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's what someone said in the chat when they looked it up, supposedly. So, not in this particular stream, but someone can look that up on on Google or whatnot. But I think in like the first part of November, maybe after the season is over. First pitch to Pages, high and away, 1-0 count. Not a good look for Hunter Green. And again, he's a good pitcher. But again, the Dodgers in the playoffs and the Dodgers at home, a little bit more powerful and reliable than the Yankees. And again, two popular teams that have rabid fan bases. Obviously, I think Dodgers are a little bit more likable than New York. But the difference is you look at the players, top to bottom, Dodgers a little bit better. And down he goes, throw at first, 2 away. Next up is Kike Hernandez. First pitch to Kike, high and away, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, low and away by Green. Four-seam fastball, 100 miles an hour on back-to-back pitches. 2 balls and no strikes to Kike Hernandez. Yeah, I mean, I like watching the Dodgers. I like watching the Cubs. I like Dodgers and Cubs more than I like Yankees and Padres. It's like I understand that, those teams have been good, but they're just not really my cup of tea. I like rooting kind of for the underdog, old school teams like the Chicago Cubs. They got great history. They got great uniforms and they got great vibe, but again, they might be a little bit out of their element, going against teams like the Brewers and the Phillies and the Dodgers, even though the Cubs are very likable, but do they have enough to compete with those other 3 teams? I guess we'll find out if they end up winning, obviously, tomorrow and they advance, if they can hang with the upper echelon of the National League, the Brewers, the Phillies, and the Dodgers. I don't necessarily think that the playoffs are always better when the Yankees are in it. I mean, you could have the Yankees and Astros out, and I think people would still enjoy it. It just depends on who's in, who's taking their spot. But obviously, there are going to be people that love Judge and the Yankees, and they're going to root for them. And then there are going to be people that hate them. They're going to root for them to lose, right? No matter who they play. It could be like the worst team, and they're still going to, have that, that hate in them, right? So we all have our rivalries and whatnot, so. Little foul tip there. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Kike Hernandez. Bottom of the 3rd inning, 5-0 Dodgers. And it shows you how quickly the Dodgers can pounce. And again, a lot of people think that the Phillies and Brewers are better. But again, the Dodgers are still a team that you can't, even if you think they're 3rd best, you think the Brewers and, the Phillies are better. Dodgers in the playoffs with the experience and the roster. Again, they can compete with the best of them. They're not going to drop off like the Yankees did. you know. And you get better production from the Dodger players in the postseason than you do in New York. For whatever reason, New York can do good in the regular season, but they don't really play that great in the postseason. You know, at least for some of their upper echelon players. You know, like Judge, you expect more, you know, from Aaron Judge game in and game out in the playoffs, but he doesn't really deliver as consistently as Ohtani, at least at this point in his career. Maybe he will, you know, down the road, but we will see. 3-2 pitch. And that's strike three looking. Kike couldn't believe it. Quick recap in the game. Shohei Ohtani in the bottom of the first. Homer to right, 375 feet. I know my dad was happy. 1-0 Mariners. No, 1-0 Dodgers. And then Teoscar Hernandez decides, hey, 390 feet. I want to join the home run party. Freeman and Muncy were on board with walks. 4-0 Dodgers. And then Tommy Edman. No one expects him to do anything. And obviously comes in with a solo dinger, 388 feet, all to right field. And we have a 5-0 lead in a blink of an eye. Let's go to the top of the fourth inning and let's see if the Reds can get on the board. Next up for the Reds, 0 for 1, DHing Miguel Andujar. Batting second, 0 for 1, left fielder Austin Hayes. And batting third, 0 for 1, first baseman Spencer Steer. Yeah, I'm excited to see what we get tomorrow. I'll be watching all of the games tomorrow, you know, starting at 10 a.m. You know, I watch every game, every pitch from beginning to end. You know, obviously I try to take some time and walk my pup and get some exercise, you know, at some point, you know, but I enjoyed all the matchups. I was a little surprised that it was such low scoring. I figured the Scooball game would be pretty low scoring and whatnot. So that one being 2-1 didn't really shock me, but I figured, you know, that there would be at least one other game that somebody got to 5 or more. And that was a little shocking, but pitching was pretty good, you know, overall in those other 3 matchups. Obviously, if you look at the starters that are pitching, pretty elite. And again, you know, as good as the hitters are, if you go against someone like Scooball, sometimes you're going to, you know, hit them, and sometimes you're just going to get K'd up. And 14 Ks, second highest in the playoffs to Sandy Koufax, who had 15 back in 1962, I believe. So again, when you end up, you know, putting up K numbers like that, very impressive, especially since the Tigers have been reeling and lost the divisional lead, had one of the biggest epic meltdowns like the Mets, but the Tigers still made, you know, the playoffs. And again, if they win tomorrow, they advance. And then, you know, we can do a little bit more research, you know, with what Detroit has in tail against Seattle. 1-2 pitch, low and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Miguel Andujar. Mariners, Brewers would be awesome. I wouldn't mind that. You know, I think Mariners, Phillies, Mariners, Dodgers would be just as exciting, you know, out of those, you know, teams. Mariners, Cubs, if somehow they were able to be like the 4th best and somehow, you know, get past the Dodgers, Brewers, and Phillies, I think any of those 4 teams would be amazing. You know, I just don't see it. You know, obviously, Reds are not going to advance against the Dodgers, and it is possible the Padres do come back and win 2 in a row. I just think the Cubs are better this year, so I don't think the Padres can do it. You know, in years past they could, but this team seems a little bit weaker. But anything is possible. We'll find out. As long as the Cubs don't have a meltdown, they should advance. First pitch to Austin Hayes, takes a strike swinging, low and away. Oh, 1 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Snell to Hayes. I mean, if you look at the Padres, I mean, they got great pitching. good bullpen. They've had some injuries. And if you look at some of the players they have, they're very like popular, famous players. But just because you have those players doesn't mean that they step up all the time. And sometimes you end up getting kind of underwhelming performances, from guys that you think that are going to tear it up, whether it be Fernando Tatis Jr. or, whether it be like Luis Ariz or Machado. Sometimes they play great together, and then other times, all of them will end up going like 0-4 or maybe 1-4 for one guy, and the other guys get blank. So, it'll be interesting to see how it kind of plays out. 2-2 pitch, low and at the knees. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes from Snell to Hayes. Top of the 4th inning, 5-0 Los Angeles. But, whoever gets hot and healthy at the right time, sometimes you'll get that team that kind of comes out of nowhere, like the Diamondbacks with Corbin Carroll a couple years ago. Dodgers, Braves, Padres. We all assumed that it would be one of those 3. And, once in a while, you'll get a team that's probably 4th or 5th, in that particular, league. And they just overachieve and get hot. Yeah, they're probably not going to win it when they get there, but they can at least make the World Series. So. And maybe the Cubs or the Diamondbacks from a few years ago, that type of team, where they're good, but I'm not sure if anyone believes they can get past the Dodgers, Phillies, or Brewers, but we'll find out. First pitch to Steer. Takes a strike looking, 0-1 count. And a big punch out there on Hayes for 2 away. 0-1 pitch, low and away with the changeup. 1 ball and 1 strike to Spencer Steer. Snell on the mound. Steer in the box. Pitch is low and in the dirt. 1 ball and 1 strike to Spencer Steer. 1-1 pitch. Takes a strike looking high and inside. 1 ball and 2 strikes with nobody on and 2 outs. 5-0 Dodger lead. Snell on the mound, Steer in the box. Snell, obviously, had some moments where he was a little nicked up, but obviously trying to be able to get their guys healthy at the right time. I mean, especially when you got guys like Snell and like Yoshinobu on top of Shohei. Again, Brewers and Phillies are amazing, but I wouldn't definitely count out the Dodgers. And you never know with the Cubs, too. They could get hot at the right time. You never know. It's a very exciting year for playoff baseball. Throw to first, and that is out number 3. Snell looks better in the Dodger uniform than he did in the Padre uniform. And again, that's going to be a key piece, for them, because normally with the Dodgers, their bugaboo is going to be injuries, and usually to the pitching staff. And again, they did have some injuries, this year, like they have every year. But the reason why the Dodgers usually end up still making deep runs is because they have like 7 or fucking 8 guys, so it's like most teams will have, 3-4 guys they count on. And if they get injured, then, the other guys that come in are usually not as good. But with the Dodgers, you might lose a few guys, but you still have a few others that are pretty good, above average, not just going from all your elite guys and then the guys kind of on the back end that are terrible. And that definitely has helped them, especially at this point when you have most of your guys healthy on the roster, top to bottom. Let's go to the bottom of the 4th inning and see who's up next here for the Dodgers. Next up for the Dodgers in the 9-hole, catcher Ben Rortvedt. Batting second, DHing with a homer already, Shohei Ohtani. And batting third, shortstop in the 2-hole, Mookie Betts. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. 57 subs to go to be able to hit 22,400. Gain a couple subs here. 56 subs to go to 22,400. Shout out to the new subs on the channel. I do think we are the best. And even if I wasn't a Mariner fan, if I was, a Blue Jay fan or another fan, it's pretty clear, but again, just because we might have the best roster top to bottom, pitching staff and bullpen, they have to show up, and again, that means we have to hit homers. The starting pitching has to be good. The bullpen has to be lights out. Because again, otherwise, we're just going to be an elite team that gets beat by a team that's got less talent, that's more motivated or on a heater, and so hopefully, that we're going to be ready and we're going to be able to strike early and get the fans into it, because I think that the Mariners and the Phillies probably have the biggest home field advantage. But if you look at the MLB playoff structure, the last 2 to 3 years, it does favor the away team more than the home team. The home teams are not as dominant, with home field. You think it would be a huge advantage like it is in football, but it hasn't really been that advantage in baseball for whatever reason. So 0-2 pitch is fouled off there by Rortvedt, right down the middle. And now they have a new pitcher in there already with Barlow. Nice. Heck yeah. That one is crushed into right field, foul. O2 pitch and big strikeout swinging by Rortvedt. Nice job by Scott Barlow there. 1 away. Next up is Shohei Ohtani. And Scott Barlow is in the matchup for Hunter Green after giving up multiple homers. I was hoping that we have a really cool Reds fan named Jordan that usually pops in with the streams, and I didn't know what schedule that he had, but I was hoping that he would be able to pop in either today or tomorrow, and we still may see him at some point before the stream ends, but obviously being down 5-0, not ideal, if you're a Reds fan at this point. But it's always cool when you can come across people on the channel that are fans of other teams than what we represent as the, focal point on the channel. And they actually are a part of this channel where, they're not going to be toxic. They're going to be smart, passionate about their team, but also someone that's likable that we can all vibe and get along with. And again, there's certain fan bases that are easier to get along with than others. That's for damn sure. 1-2 pitch. That one's fouled off high and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Barlow to Ohtani. One-two pitch. Fouled off high and away. Another great souvenir. Getting an Ohtani ball is definitely a goal of mine before Ohtani retires. I already got a Julio ball. I got a Kike Hernandez ball. I got an Aaron Judge ball. I would love to add an Ohtani ball to the collection, but obviously that's going to be easier said than done. 1-2 pitch. Low and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Shohei Ohtani. 2-2 pitch from Barlow. Big swing and a miss. Low and away. And that is strike 3. Down goes Shohei, and that is 2 away. Scott Barlow doing a pretty good job here, filling in for Hunter Green that gave up the 3 homers. Next up is Mookie Betts. First pitch from Barlow to Betts. Takes a strike looking high and inside. 0-1 count. Man, Barlow's got the hair, doesn't he? He looks like someone that would be on the Dodgers with that kind of hair. 0-1 pitch, takes a strike looking high and inside, same spot. Four-seam fastball on the first, curve on the second. 0-2 pitch, low and away with that sweeper, off speed, 81 miles an hour. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Mookie Betts. Yeah, I believe everyone is good to go based on the reports that I was reading, and it sounds like Bryce Miller will be moved into the pen. And again, I don't have any complaints about that. If you want to put Logan Evans, Emerson Hancock, and Miller in the pen to help us, with Brash and Bizzardo and Spire and Mooney, if we can have a monster bullpen so that way we don't have to have like Legomina or Ferguson out there as much. We just want to make sure we're having the best, possible players to help us win. So. And a big swing and a miss, and down he goes. Barlow did a good job. Maybe they should have started Scott Barlow instead of Hunter Green there. I mean, we know Hunter can throw, 100 to 101, but Dodgers were all over him, but they haven't figured out the formula on how to get Barlow out here, at least early on. All right, let's go to the top of the 5th inning. Nice job there by Barlow. Let's see if we can get some, some action here for the Cincinnati Reds. 0-for-1 with a K, shortstop Elly De La Cruz. I would love to see Elly hit a home run or two to try to get his team back into this. We know that they're severely outmatched, but I still like watching Elly, and he definitely gives you a reason to pay attention to the Reds once in a while when he is at bat or making plays on defense. Batting second, 0-for-1 with a K, catcher Tyler Stevenson. And batting third, 0-for-1, the former Pirate, third baseman Key Brian Hayes. End of the 4th inning, 5-0 Dodgers. I think everything is going to be, good to go also. The Mariners are also doing a couple scrimmages, to kind of keep them going. They've, obviously have been having some practices each day, a little bit of batting practice, a little bit, and they're trying to keep, like on a regular routine instead of just doing like nothing until like the day before and then hoping that they play well. So the Mariners are putting themselves in a position to win by being active every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, as we get prepared for Saturday. So I think we'll be just fine. One pitch, fouled off. High and inside. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Elly De La Cruz. Yeah, I like this one as well. I got, a certain amount that I have access to, and some I'll use a little bit more frequently than others that fit more of the baseball theme. But yeah, I do like this one a lot as well. 1-2 pitch, low and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Elly De La Cruz. 2-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and down goes Elly on strikes. And again, if Elly De La Cruz can't do it, then you can't expect a lot of their, his teammates to do it as well. Next up, 0-for-1, Tyler Stevenson. First pitch, high and away with the changeup. A couple inches away from that corner, 1-0 count. Snell on the mound, wheeling and dealing, looking absolutely fantastic. And Tyler Stevenson for the Reds, catcher in the box, 0 for 1 with a K. I mean, hopefully the Reds don't get zeros in both games, but definitely the most lopsided, matchup. I think having the Mets play them would have been a little bit more even, but even though the Dodgers would have an advantage against them as well. But you would assume with Alonso, Lindor, and Soto that they would have a chance to at least score. They might give up a bunch, but they would be able to get some home runs and some ribbies against this team. And pops it up. Paez with the catch, and that is 2 away. Next up is Ke'Bryan Hayes. First pitch is high and away, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, big swing and a miss, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Snell to Hayes. Top of the 5th inning, 5-0 Los Angeles. Blake Snell wheeling and dealing. Great pickup for them, obviously, this year. And Hayes in the box, the former Pittsburgh Pirate. And a slow dribbler there up the middle. Throw to first, and that is out number 3. Freddie Freeman takes care of business there with out number 3. Toe tap in the bag, and let's see who's up next here for the Dodgers in the bottom of the 5th. Next up for the Dodgers, 0 for 1 with a run and a base on ball. First baseman, Freddie Freeman. Batting second, 0 for 1 with a run, base on ball, and a K, third baseman, Max Muncy. And batting third, 2 for 2 with a run, 3 RBIs, and a big 3-run blast, Teoscar Hernandez. Where are we sitting at on the likes? How close are we to getting to 50? Hopefully we can get to at least 50 at the bare minimum. We're still looking for our first dono on our dono train. We've gained a couple subs, and all the support that we can get will be greatly appreciated. Bottom of the 5th inning, 5-0 Dodgers. See if Freddie can make a play here. First pitch from Barlow to Freeman, low and away with a sweeper. Off speed, 80 miles an hour, 1-0 count. Cool that they show Harry Ford there on this little highlight. Obviously, his idol is Freddie Freeman, and for him to be able to have that memory, with one of his idols, very, very cool. That's very cool that they decided to show that. Shout out to Harry Ford, my boy. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Freddie Freeman. And I'm very excited for the opportunity for Colt Emerson at some point to be able to be on the roster. Again, he will be taking JP's job down the road once JP ends up getting a little bit older, or if Colt ends up outplaying him once he gets called up. We'll kind of wait and see on that. I think JP is still very likable and pretty solid as a shortstop, but again, Cole Young, Colt Emerson, right? Ben Williamson, Lazaro Montez, Harry Ford. We have a lot of guys that have that spark and have the talent, but sometimes you got to wait your turn if there's players that are ahead of you that are slightly better. Pitch fouled off. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. 1-2 pitch, fouled off, high and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. Yes. Shortstop Emerson, yes. Because at some point, it'll be Colt and Cole together, but obviously, they're not ready just yet. And then obviously Ben at third. And then at some point, you're going to have Lazaro Montes maybe in right. And then we can move Robles to left. So we don't have to worry about Randy Arozarena, having that shitty defense out there in left. But as long as Randy's on the roster, it seems like he's got that, spot on lock. But I would rather have someone that hits less homers, that plays better defense than him. But not sure if Lazaro Montes can play left field, but it wouldn't really hurt my feelings. I like guys that, that put on the effort, on both sides of the ball. Not just being like a, one-way player. Especially for a guy that's like all-star caliber. I've never seen an all-star caliber player be so lazy. Freeman chops it towards first base, foul. Like, it's one thing if you just have like a scrub and then they're just, they don't care, or they're just not good and they don't have the athleticism. But it makes it worse when you got a guy that's an all-star that has the athleticism and the athletic ability, but purely just decides not to hustle, and jog and, not throw lasers into the infield and just lobs it every time. It's just, never seen a player like that on the Mariners, and obviously it's not a homegrown player because we would not allow that. Obviously the Tampa Bay Rays maybe thought that was okay, and Freeman lines out to first, and that is 1 away. Yeah, Lazaro Montes isn't ready yet, but I'm super excited for him. I watch single A, high A, double A, triple A. I'm keeping up with all of the top 100, farm guys, and Ryan Sloan and Durangelo for pitchers, and obviously Cade Anderson. It's going to be really, really exciting in the next few years once we get a few of these, young guns that get a chance to play. Next up is Max Muncy. First pitch from Barlow to Muncy. Curveball low and away. 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, high and away with a four-seam fastball, 89 miles an hour to Muncy. 2 balls and no strikes. In the bottom of the 5th with nobody on and 1 out, 5-0 Dodger lead. Two-0 pitch, low and at the knees. 2 balls and 1 strike to Max Muncy. Oh, man. Sloan, I'm actually surprised that they didn't give him a chance to get called up at least at some point this year. That would have been kind of cool, but Sloan has got, some nastiness in him. We'll see how that translates to the big leagues, but obviously Durangelo and Cade have got to be the top 2 guys with Sloan. Those are the top 3. So, we'll see. And obviously Cade and Durangelo are being prepped to be starters. So that means that Castillo will be on the way out. Miller will have his job challenged, and again, at some point it will be Wu, Kirby, Gilbert, Durangelo, and Cade Anderson. And that will be the starting 5. And then Miller will have to take on the role of being the guy on the outside looking in, like Logan Evans and Emerson Hancock. So I would assume. Unless Miller can get back to being the Miller that we knew from a few years ago, but I don't know. We'll wait and see on that. 2 away. Down goes Muncy, 2 away. Next up is Teoscar Hernandez. But obviously Cade Anderson, winning a natty with LSU. Obviously he could have been picked first overall. They went for a utility player, right out of the gates, and then the Angels went for a different pitcher. We're going to make them pay for that decision. And thank you very much for letting the best player, or arguably best player in the draft, fall into our lap at 3. And then Durangelo is a 1 of 1 because he can pitch from the left and the right. And again, that will be a huge advantage. And on top of that, being able to be coached up with this Mariner organization, which we are known for building pitchers the right way. So very exciting to be able to see, Sloan, Durangelo, as well as Cade Anderson. And I would assume Cade will get, obviously, probably, the call up first. And then I'm not sure if Sloan will get a call up before Durangelo. They're still kind of developing. They don't want to bring guys up too soon. So, sometimes guys will get called up, after a year. Sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4 years, like Harry Ford. So just kind of depends on, what you have on the roster at the moment and where you're going. Yeah, those two, and then obviously, with Cade. Those are going to be very exciting. And then obviously, getting Cade in the starting lineup will be awesome because we don't have a lefty, and we haven't had a lefty in a little bit. I mean, Robbie Ray, he ended up having a pretty good, season with the Giants this year, and even before the Giants collapsed. But, for a while, Robbie's numbers were pretty fucking good and whatnot. But we all know what happened with him on the Mariners and whatnot. But it would be nice to be able to get a lefty starter that we can trust and rely on instead of just having 5 righties and whatnot. So I'm very excited for that. And they're making another pitching change here now. Phillips is coming in. Oh, 1 pitch. Takes a strike swinging. No balls and 2 strikes to Teoscar Hernandez. Connor Phillips in the matchup now, filling in for Scott Barlow. 0-2 pitch. Back. See ya! And Teoscar Hernandez does it again. A 3-run jack and now a solo dinger. 390 feet. And again, it shows you how valuable Teoscar Hernandez is. 6-0 Dodgers. Wow. Second homer of the night. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez single-handedly can beat this Reds team by himself. My goodness. Next up is Tommy Edman. We'll see if he can homer for the second time today as well. Wow. And again, so much focus is on Ohtani and Betts and Freeman, and then when Muncy is healthy. But, Teoscar, so consistent, such a great player for the Blue Jays, Mariners, and now the Dodgers. And again, anytime you end up having a flat start out of Ohtani, Mookie, or Freddie, you got at least 2 or 3 other guys in the lineup that can pick it up. Muncy, Teoscar, Tommy Edman, Kike Hernandez, Pajes, maybe Rortvet is a guy that you can't really count on that much, but top to bottom, pretty fucking strong lineup and strong pitching staff as well as bullpen for the Dodgers this year. Even though that the second half of the season wasn't the greatest, for them, they know how to turn it on when it matters the most in the postseason. That's why I think they have just as good of a chance as the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Phillies to represent the National League this year. It's like they might have been a little shaky after the All-Star break, but once the playoffs start, that is put behind them, and they put their best foot forward. And Teoscar Hernandez, 2 home runs, unbelievable. 2-1 pitch, fouled off right down the middle. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Tommy Edman. 6-0 Dodgers. 2-2 pitch, big swing and a miss. And down goes Tommy Edman, and that is out number 3, but not after Teoscar Hernandez homered for the second time. Let's see who's up next here for the Reds here in the top of the 6th. Next up for the Reds, second baseman in the 9-hole, 1-for-1, Matt McClain. Batting second, 0-for-1 with a base on ball and a K, center fielder TJ Friedel. And batting third, 0-for-2 with a K, right fielder Noelvi Marte. Too bad we weren't able to keep Teoscar on the Mariners. I'd rather have Teoscar than Randy. If we had Teoscar, Victor Robles, and Julio, that no-fly zone would be better than having Randy. Now, Randy is obviously, streaky. He can get you home runs. And, when he's on, he'll get singles and doubles and, hit some big, game-winning home runs from time to time. He does strike out a lot. But obviously, defense, that's the big thing. And again, give me a Teoscar all day, every day over Randy. Top of the 6th inning, 6-0 Dodgers. Fuck, Yankees aren't even good enough to beat the Red Sox. And you can't have a Yankees-M's World Series because they're in the same American League. Now, Mariners-Brewers, right? Mariners-Phillies, Mariners-Dodgers, Mariners-Cubs. I wouldn't mind that. I mean, those seem like the most realistic options. I think we're better than the Blue Jays. We're better than the Red Sox and Yankees. And we're better than the Guardians and Tigers. But, I do think that all the teams that are playing, Guardians, Tigers, Yankees, and Red Sox, they do play the Mariners well. It's not like it would be easy, like it is for the Dodgers here today against the Reds. Like if we played any of those teams, it would not be easy. It's going to be a grinded out type of matchup. And, we'll find out if the Red Sox end up beating the Yankees, if they end up beating the Blue Jays as well. I just hope that Seattle can find a way to, win this particular series for the ALDS, whether it be the Tigers or Guardians, play the Blue Jays or Red Sox, unless the Yankees win 2 in a row and we beat them, and then, go to the World Series against the Brewers, Phillies, Dodgers, or Cubs, and we'll see how the, cookie crumbles at that point. 1-2 pitch, high and inside, 2 balls and 2 strikes to Matt McClain. Dodgers, I figured that's what you meant. Appreciate you, Dave. 549. Thank you so much, man. Stacks, Rex with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Appreciate you. 549. $94.50 to hit the goal. And if you got a particular favorite player that you want to be able to showcase, on the stream, let me know. It could be a past player or a present player. And I can see if I can find some HD 4K photos of that particular favorite player that you want to showcase if you like. If not, it's no problem, but I'll throw it out there, obviously, when, this matchup is a little bit slower, so we actually have time to do that. But I appreciate the generosity, Dave. It means everything. Thank you so much. First pitch from Snell to Friedel. Low and away, 1-0 count. One-0 pitch in play, and Friedel grounds out to the pitcher, and that is 2 away. Miguel Andujar on deck. Next up is Noelvi Marte. Yeah, but it's not like the Yankees didn't have a chance. I mean, hell, they had bases loaded, no outs in the bottom of the 9th, down by 2 runs. They could have scored at least a minimum of 1, and they couldn't even get that. So, I mean, they were in prime position with back-to-back-to-back hits, to be able to put them in a position. But, same thing with the Guardians beating the Tigers. They had a good opportunity. Ramirez was the first batter in the 9th and got a triple off an error. And they had no outs, and they couldn't bring him home. Got caught in between the base paths and got tagged out. And, nothing will be more demoralizing when you end up making like this amazing play, with no outs, and you think, oh my God, we have a chance. And then that gets ripped out of your heart, maybe a couple minutes later. And down goes Marte on strikes, and that is out number 3. Blake Snell is wheeling and dealing. Next up for the Dodgers, 0 for 2 center fielder Andy Pages. Batting second, left fielder, utility player Kike Hernandez. And ever since I got my first MLB ball from Kike on a foul ball early in the first inning in 2019, I always root for him. And batting third, catcher Ben Rortvedt. Look at the Mets payroll on how much they spent, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So just because you have a high payroll doesn't guarantee postseason. Charlie Hustle. And I love the old school era. You know, I love stuff from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. And I really, really love stuff from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. You know, things that were a part of my childhood and things that were maybe a part of my dad's childhood or as he got older, you know, just based on the, you know, the clothes, the jerseys, you know, just everything, the way that it looked. And obviously just the vibes that you get, you know, from the old school era. And a lot of times when you look at sports jerseys now, you know, compared to sports jerseys back then, and it doesn't matter if we're talking basketball, baseball, football, hockey, sometimes the more simplicity of the jersey with the colors. There's a reason why throwbacks are so popular, and it's not just Mitchell and Ness, because a lot of the modern day jerseys are not very good. You know, they, you know, try too hard, you know, to make it maybe too flashy, you know, and some teams are gonna, you know, be able to embrace that with their fan base, but, you know, it seems like sometimes they don't have the right, you know, fashion input, you know, based on, you know, that particular team's colors and what's going on. But I definitely like a lot of the throwback stuff. And I know I'm probably not the only one in the room that would agree with that a lot of the throwback stuff, you know, from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, especially in the 80s and 90s, those jerseys are quite a bit better than the stuff that we have now. Now, are there some pretty sweet jerseys, you know, available in NHL, MLB, NBA, and, you know, all of the four major sports in the MLB? Yes, there are some jerseys that are nice or maybe haven't changed over the years, like the Dodgers, the Yankees, or Cubs with the pinstripes. But, man, you know, a lot of the old school stuff is very killer. And pops up into left field, Pages, and that is one away. Next up is Kike Hernandez. Yeah. And they waited, you know, until after he passed to, you know, try to acknowledge him. And obviously, you know, being a manager and, you know, from a team that you actually played on and making bets, you know, whatnot. But obviously now with how sports gambling is and whatnot, as Kike gets a nice single to right. Nice job, Kike. But yeah, you know, it definitely is viewed a little bit different, you know, maybe than, you know, guys that did PEDs and steroids and whatnot. So next up is Ben Rortvedt. First pitch of Rortvedt, takes a strike looking, 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, fouled off low and at the knees. No balls and 2 strikes from Phillips to Rortvedt. Bottom of the 6th, 6-0 Dodgers. Gary Carter Expos era, and I'm glad you brought that up. You know what's really cool, Dave? Netflix is coming up with an Expos special about who ended up, you know, killing off the Expos, and it goes in behind the scenes with the owner, the GM, the fans, the people that lived in Montreal. It's a must-see. I don't know when it comes out, but I ended up seeing a preview of the Netflix special, and it looks fucking awesome. I can't wait to see it. And again, I used to rock a old school Expos hat, for Randy Johnson back in the day, and love the colors. If I was rich, I would buy a Expos Randy Johnson jersey. Pedro Martinez was on the team as well. Andres Galarraga, Oil Can Boyd. I mean, I got a lot of memories. Moises Alou and, a lot of these old school guys and stuff. But obviously Randy and Pedro never got a chance to be able to build off that team. And then the strike happened. But again, I can't wait for that Netflix special to come out. It's going to be must-see TV for me. And I'll get a Gary Carter Expo photo for you once we go to commercial break. 0-1 pitch to Ohtani, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Phillips to Ohtani. Oh, Ichiro would have. And Ohtani back. See ya. Man, this team is hot right now. Shohei Ohtani with 2 home runs. Teoscar with 2 home runs. I don't know. If they play like this, if I'm the Phillies, the Cubs, or the Brewers, this is not going to be an easy path. Wow. Unbelievable power by Shohei Ohtani, 8-0 Dodgers. And again, you never can count this team out. Again, the Brewers had a great year on the road and at home, but the lack of playoff experience for the Cubs and the Brewers may be the bugaboo. And really the only team that I see them being kind of head-to-head with is the Phillies. Phillies have gone deep in the playoffs the last few years. They have the roster to keep up with the Dodgers, but really the question is, whose pitching and defense is going to be better? And wow, crazy. Shohei Ohtani doing big things. And this is what we expect from Aaron Judge, but we just don't get this from Aaron Judge in the postseason. 2-0 pitch, low and at the knees, 3 balls and no strikes to Mookie Betts. And that's kind of the difference. Like, Judge is great, in the regular season, but he fizzles typically in the postseason. Will he end up making some home runs and getting some hits and RBIs? Yeah, but not as often as you would like as a, quote unquote superstar. And you definitely see Ohtani doing it more on a regular basis. And obviously, I think most of us would agree Ohtani is a better player than Judge. Obviously, he does more on top of hitting, also pitching and whatnot. Now, Judge is great. He's like one of the modern day, GOATs. We definitely know that. He'll be just like a Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, one of the top dogs, with Ohtani. Obviously, Cal looks like he might be the catcher of the generation, as Betts almost gets hit in the face there and dodges out of the way. That was very close. And I hope he's okay. And hopefully that wasn't intentional by Connor Phillips. But we'll see. And I expect Schwarber to go crazy in the postseason as well. And it's just kind of weird. Like, if Judge can do all these amazing things in the regular season, why can't he do it in the postseason? Compared to some of the other guys. And I assume, and I'm hoping, obviously, Schwarber and Cal will be like Ohtani and, maybe not as good as Ohtani, in the postseason, but hopefully a little bit more consistent than Judge. And, definitely we can get some home runs out of Schwarber and Cal to help our teams win. All right, we're going to have a pitching change. They don't have a whole lot of photos that'll fit the screen with Gary Carter and whatnot, but I'll see if I can find a couple that at least show him in his regular form. And we got to get him in the white as well. But when you think of Gary Carter, you also think of like Carlton Fisk, in the same kind of breath and whatnot. But I miss the old school jerseys and the old school look. And I honestly think that Montreal, having a team, with Toronto would have been much better than having the Nationals, and whatnot. But again, that Expos special on Netflix is going to go deep diving on, where to point the blame, with the owner and the GM and then the city that didn't want to put up the money. And then the strike happened. And it's just kind of a damn shame because they had, obviously, pretty good roster, great unis, fantastic fans. And just a damn shame that, they ended up losing their team and they haven't, brought another team in. So. One pitch fouled off, low and at the knees. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Freddie Freeman. Bottom of the 6th, 8-0 Dodger lead. One-two pitch. Low and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Suter to Freeman. The Reds are just going through pitchers left and right. Obviously, when you're down 8-0, it would have been better to see the Mets play the Dodgers. At least the Mets would give up a fight, and the Mets actually could win a game. With Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto. With those 3 guys alone, you would assume that they could do something. And Freeman with a big ground rule double and Betts to third. Man, they keep pouring it on. I mean, even if you put the Reds and the Mets together, they still wouldn't be able to beat the Dodgers. And now you got runners at second and third with 2 outs. And is this the moment where we get Max Muncy to go yard and it's 11-0 Dodgers? But obviously Dodgers getting hot at the right time. Oh, 1 pitch, low and at the knees with that sinker. 1 ball and 1 strike from Suter to Muncy. Bottom of the 6th, 8-0 Dodgers. 1-1 pitch, high and away with the 4-seam fastball. 2 balls and 1 strike to Max Muncy. Oh, the strike definitely hurt, 100%. I mean, good for the Nats to be able to have guys, like Bryce Harper and Juan Soto and Trey Turner at one point or another, and now they got James Wood. But, I would rather have the Expos in a heartbeat than have the Washington Nationals. But again, I don't know if we'll ever be able to get a team back in Canada to pair up with Toronto, but it would be awesome if it were to happen at one point or another. But obviously, if that were to happen, they would have to have another team because you would have to have 2 teams for the expansion. So that probably won't happen. And that is out number 3. The run ends, but not after the Dodgers end up getting a little bit more. And Teoscar Hernandez, homer to right center, 390 feet, 6-0 Dodgers. And then Ohtani, obviously, homer to right center, 454 feet with Kike on board, 8-0 Dodgers. Cincinnati out of their element. See if I can find another Gary Carter here for you. Maybe like a Gary Carter autograph. Let's see. There's an old school Gary Carter auto on a little 8x10. Pretty cool. Love the hat, love the shirt, the jersey, love the logo. Got a good signature. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of people, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Rafael Palmeiro, Roger Clemens. But I mean, if we're talking about the steroid era with the home runs and everything, yeah, definitely Bonds, McGwire, Sosa, when they were on their run and everything was must-see TV when they were homering. Yeah, it definitely brought more eyeballs to the sport. I mean, for a lot of us, we were watching anyways, but then it gave us an extra reason to like check out those guys. Every time that they were playing, oh, let me flip the channel. Let's see if McGwire hits one, or oh, let's see if Sosa hits one, or if Bonds hits one into the water. And when they're in their little canoes and punching each other for the ball and whatnot. So it definitely brought more eyes to the sport. But I did read an article this morning that baseball overall attendance and views are up, not only in America, but around the world, in Japan as well. So if you're actually looking at all the leagues, that baseball is covered, this is one of the, better years that they've had, and an increase of not only attendance, but viewers that are watching on TV, which is very cool. I mean, I'd rather watch baseball than watch any NBA game. I feel like the NBA is kind of fallen, back. They're not the same anymore from the athletes they had in the 80s and 90s. Obviously, football is always going to be entertaining, college and NFL, and everyone's got their, niche markets that they like. Little slow dribbler, throw to first, and that is one away. Down goes Andujar. Next up is Austin Hayes. First pitch, high and away. Four-seam fastball by Blake Snell, 1-0 count. Top of the seventh inning, 8-0 Dodgers. Blake Snell wheeling and dealing. Yeah, no one's breaking that record, just like no one's breaking Nolan Ryan's records either. Most no-hitters, most one-hitters, most two-hitters, most three-hitters, most four-hitters, most five-hitters, playing from 1968 to 1993, 94. You're not going to get anyone that's going to play in 4 fucking decades, going from the Mets to the Angels, to the Houston Astros to the Texas Rangers. So there's going to be, certain guys, like Nolan Ryan and Cal Ripken. Yeah, that shit is never, ever going to be broken. 1-1 pitch in play. And a nice single there by Hayes. Too bad singles don't count for runs. I mean, if that was the case, maybe the Reds could come back slightly. Next up is Spencer Steer. And if there was ever a moment that Steer needed to get a homer or an RBI, it's fucking right now to prevent the donut and the 0. Top of the seventh, runner at first. Spencer Steer in the box with 1 out. First pitch, fouled off towards that third base line, 0-1 count. Oh, 1 pitch in play and a nice base knock. There we go. Nice job, Steer. Off the glove of Freeman, but they'll take that. And now they got runners at first and third with 1 out. And this is the best chance that they have. And now you got Elly De La Cruz. Now, if you can get De La Cruz to homer to make it 8-3, they're not going to win, but at least it'll make the game a little bit more interesting in the last 3 innings. See if Elly can get a RBI, but obviously a home run right now would be fantastic. But he's got 2 Ks and an 0 for 2, and Snell kind of has his number. First pitch to De La Cruz. Big swing and a miss. 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Ellie De La Cruz, their best player, no doubt. One pitch, big swing and a miss, low and at the knees. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Ellie De La Cruz. Come on, Ellie. I love Chris Sabo with the goggles. If you grew up in like the 80s, 90s, obviously the, junk wax era, with the baseball cards and whatnot. But I loved, that old school era with the Chris Sabo and the Rob Dibble, and, going through all of those, players and, going to, Mike Greenwell, on the Red Sox. I mean, you always have your famous guys like Roger Clemens, but sometimes it's about like some of the other guys, like everyone remembers Sandberg, but also Mark Grace. And, you have some of the other obscure names like Jerome Walton and whatnot. It's like, it definitely brings back memories when I hear names from the 80s back in that time period. 2-2 pitch, low and at the knees. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Ellie De La Cruz. Top of the 7th, runners at first and third with 1 out, 8-0 Los Angeles. And let's see if De La Cruz can come up with a play here to help his team at least not have a donut. Single, double, triple, or home run would be ideal. But again, when you're going against Blake Snell, it's kind of hard to do anything when he's on, just like any pitcher that is top tier. Yeah, too bad Palmeiro got kind of caught up with the steroids as well. It ruined Bond, Sosa, McGuire, Palmeiro, Clemens, and many, many others. And a slow dribbler, double play, and safe at first. And that's going to bring in a run. There we go. Good thing Ellie was flying down first base. If that was Randy Arozarena, it easily would have been out. But nice effort by Ellie to be able to get to first safe. And again, I love being able to see guys hustle. Nice job by Ellie hustling to first. Let's look at the replay. Ooh, that's close. He might be out. First replay looks like he's out. Let's look again. Oh, the heel hits the base, and then the ball goes in the mitt, so he is safe. If we're talking about the front part of his foot, it's still in the air, but it looks like the heel hits, and then the ball goes in the mitt, so I think that will stand, and it'll be 8-1. So at least now the Reds fans can, obviously they're not happy. They're getting blasted, but, it's better to be at 8-1 than 8-0. Yeah, it would have been better to have the Mets. I agree. But again, that's the Mets' fault for, having a meltdown like the Tigers did, and sometimes if teams get hot at the right time late, it was either going to be the Mets, the Reds, or the Diamondbacks. And Reds and Diamondbacks don't have any business being in the playoffs. And obviously, even though the Mets didn't make it, they were more, battle tested, again. But you can't go like 45-24 and be like one of the best and then have like the flip side of that record in the second half. And, they definitely went on an epic meltdown. But, Mets Dodgers would be, more interesting for sure. I will agree with that. First pitch to Stevenson from Snell. Takes a strike looking low and away. 0-1 count. Tyler Stevenson in the box, and Blake Snell still wheeling and dealing on the mound. And not only that, Snell's getting the ultimate run support. 2 homers by Ohtani, 2 by Teoscar. Aaron Judge only wishes he could do that. And I hope that he, at some point, ends up, showing that, he can play in the postseason. But for whatever reason, he's like lights out in the regular, but, kind of shaky in the playoffs. 0-1 pitch, low and at the knees, almost hits him on the foot there. 1 ball and 1 strike from Snell to Stevenson. Top of the 7th. And a nice little base knock by Stevenson, and that's going to bring home a run. There we go. Nice double. De La Cruz scores, and that is 8-2 Dodgers. And Ellie hustling. Going from first to home, and there's not many guys that would be able to do that. Great hustle by Ellie De La Cruz, single-handedly putting up 2 runs on the board by himself. Nice job, Ellie. Next up, third baseman Ke'Bryan Hayes. Now, obviously, we know the Dodgers are in firm control, and they're still going to win. But nice to be able to see like a star player actually show up in the postseason. Great job. And it's not easy to score from first base. I mean, I don't care who you are. You definitely have to have speed to get there, and we know Ellie got that speed. 1-0 pitch, low and away. 2 balls and no strikes to Ke'Bryan Hayes. Captain in the building, what's good? 2-0 pitch, big swing and a miss, low and away. 2 balls and 1 strike from Snell to Hayes. There we go. We got to 50. That's good, especially with the limited audience. We'll take that. See if we can get to 60 before the stream ends, if we get a little bit more of a boost of an audience. We're at 549, so 550, 94.50 to go to hit the goal. Gained a couple subs as well. Two-one pitch, and Hayes grounds out to second, and that is out number 3. Good effort by the Reds there. I mean, again, you know, when you're getting blasted, you can just give up, but nice for Ellie De La Cruz to be able to step up, you know, after Hayes and, Steer ended up, trying to be able to do a little bit of damage, and then from Ellie to be able to score from first all the way to home, and as well as running out that initial play at first to be safe. And now you have an 8-2 game, which is much better on the scoreboard rather than 8-0. The only problem is the Dodgers are probably not done scoring. They'll probably get to 10 or more. Next up for the Dodgers, 3 for 3 and 2 home runs. Is that correct? My goodness. Teoscar Hernandez, which you were still on the Mariners over Randy. Batting second. Normally would be Tommy Edman, but he's already homered once today. So they're going to go throw in and pinch hit Miguel Rojas. And then batting third will be Andy Pajes. So let me get the Rojas photo here. So we're going to go Teoscar Hernandez. Miguel Rojas will be pinch hitting for Tommy Edman, who's already homered today. And then batting third, 0 for 3, center fielder Andy Pajes. It's been all Dodgers, but nice to be able to see De La Cruz do at least something. Yeah, you ain't going to get Reds Padres. No, there's no chance in hell. See, anytime you root for teams that you just don't want to go, but you know that they're good, it never happens. You know, the teams that are built, are going to go. Cubs are going to make it. Dodgers are going to make it. Obviously, we know Phillies and Brewers are good. Obviously, on the flip side, we'll see if the Tigers advance over the Guardians, and Red Sox are the Yankees' kryptonite. So we'll see where it goes. But again, rooting against teams that are good, it never works out. Just like when you ended up doing some sports betting, it's like in your mind is one thing, but your heart is also different. So if your heart and your mind are on different teams, obviously you're not going to get the outcome that you want most of the time. It's like, especially if you have like this strong dislike for elite teams, they will always find a way to win. It just, the Reds, no chance in hell. And obviously the Padres do have a chance against the Cubs, but the Cubs are the better team this year. If you looked at the Padres, obviously not as good as they have been in previous years, where they were like one of the contenders, either with the Braves and the Dodgers or the Phillies and the Dodgers. Obviously there's been a few teams that have kind of passed them this year. So the only team that the Padres are for sure better than in the National League are the Reds. That's the only team. Everyone else that's in the National League right now is better than them at this moment, in my opinion. Cubs, Dodgers, Phillies, Brewers. That's the upper echelon of the National League. And then the Padres, and then the Reds. And then you got Mariners and Blue Jays, and then maybe, Red Sox, if they beat the Yankees, and then obviously you got Yankees and, Guardians, and then obviously, we'll see what happens there. But again, the Guardians could win 2 in a row, and also the Yankees could win 2 in a row. I mean, it could happen. And those series are the most even. But, if you win that first game, you definitely have a big edge. 1-2 pitch, high and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Teoscar Hernandez. Now, if the Mets were playing the Dodgers, they would still lose, but they would put up more runs and be more exciting. Where if the Mets were playing right now, maybe the score is like, I don't know, it probably wouldn't be 8-2. Maybe it's 5-3 Dodgers, but there would be a good chance of Lindor, Pete Alonso, and Juan Soto, homering or, coming up with some plays. Like, you don't really know how good their pitching is going to be, but at least they have guys in the lineup that that can do some damage sometimes. And Teoscar flies out to left, and that is 1 away. Wish Teoscar was still on the Mariners. Next up, pinch hitting for Tommy Edman, Miguel Rojas. And Rojas normally known for his defense, but every once in a while can come up with some plays in the box. First pitch from Suter to Rojas, takes a strike looking, 0-1 count. But I did get a chance, Captain, to watch all the games, from the first game with the Guardians and the Tigers, and then Cubs and Padres, as Rojas gets a single to right. His pinch hitting opportunity ends up working out for him there. And now next up will be Andy Pages. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing if the Tigers are going to advance, so that way we can already start game planning for them, or if the Guardians have enough heart with Steven Kwan and Jose Ramirez where they can battle it back and at least take it to that third game. And same thing with the Yankees. Can they battle back from that, very heartbreaking loss, when you ended up being down 3-1, but you got, bases loaded with no outs in the bottom of the ninth and scored nothing. Kind of reminds me of like the Mariners, honestly. Maybe not in the bottom of the ninth, but, we've had situations like that too, where it's like we've been down a couple and then all of a sudden we get bases loaded with no outs and thinking that we're going to score 1 or 2 or more, and then we get none, or sometimes we only get 1. But in this case with the Yankees, they got nothing, and that's demoralizing, when you're down 3-1, and obviously the Yankee bullpen blew it for them. Obviously, we know Fried is amazing as a starter, but, you have to be able to have a good bullpen, and Yankees bullpen has been shaky as of late. 2-1 pitch, foul, low and at the knees. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Suter to Pages. Two-one pitch, fouled off, low and at the knees. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Andy Pages. 8-2 Dodger lead here in the bottom of the 7th. With a runner at first with 1 out. 2-2 pitch, low and at the knees with the sinker, 92 miles an hour. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Andy Pages. And then I'll figure out what we're going to do tomorrow. I mean, normally I end up, choosing the last game just based off the time. But no matter who would have played, I probably, the Cubs Padres one would have been an awesome one to do if it was later. Especially Guardians and Tigers would have been my most preferred game to do, because that's who the Mariners are playing next. So that way that we can kind of see what we're working with, on who we're going against and whatnot. But having the Guardians and Tigers on at 10 a.m. is not ideal. So. Three-two pitch, and that one is flied out to left, and that is 2 away. And then we'll figure out if we end up doing the Niners and the Rams, or if we just do filler streams, today, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, based off the wild card. We'll kind of, pick and choose what we decide to do, and then we'll kind of go from there. And then obviously Saturday, the Ducks in Indiana are playing, but Mariners takes priority. And then same thing with the Buccaneers and Seahawks on Sunday. Obviously Mariners takes priority, but I would like to be able to do, 2 streams on Saturday or Sunday, but we have to be able to have things that don't overlap, to do that. So. All right, Alex Call is pinch hitting. And Call is pinch hitting for Kike Hernandez. First pitch to Call, and a little blooper into right field, and he gets a hit. And wild throw at third. Wow. And that's going to score a run. 9-2 Dodgers. Wow. You can't make any errors against elite teams. And a nice job by Alex Call coming in to pinch hit and getting ahead. And it shows you how deep they are. They can have guys that have been sitting for 2 hours come in and get the job done. And especially Dodgers at home. It's a very tough environment to come into, no matter who you are. And really the only team that had great success against the Dodgers in LA over the years in the last 10 to 15 is the Giants, when they ended up winning those 3 World Series 2 years apart. And next up is Rortvet, and Rortvet with a single, and Call isn't going to score. 10-2 Dodgers. Wow. They're pouring it on now, and I knew they weren't done. Hit after hit after hit. And now they're back up at Shohei Ohtani. First pitch to Ohtani, low and at the knees, 1-0 count with the sinker. Yeah, Phillies are going to match up very well to the Dodgers, and I think the Brewers, the Brewers and Cubs have had a great regular season, but since they have lack of experience in the playoffs, how is that going to determine what they do? Is it going to be a factor because they don't have the experience, or are they going to overachieve and play like the Dodgers and Phillies? We don't know. We don't know if the Brewers and Cubs have enough to beat the Dodgers or the Phillies. We don't know yet, but we'll find out as we continue into the playoffs, and it'll be exciting to see if they can find a way to be on the Dodger Philly level, because we know once they go to the postseason, they turn it up to another gear. Can the Brewers and Cubs do the same? I hope they can. I really do. I want to be able to see some competitive baseball. 3-0 pitch, takes a strike looking in the zone. 3 balls and 1 strike with a runner at first and 2 outs. 10-2 Dodger lead. Yeah, they fell off pretty dramatically the last few years. 3-1 pitch, takes another strike looking. But for a few years, they were pretty good, like the Padres. They were right there with the Dodgers. And then you had the Diamondback team with Corbin Carroll that kind of came out of nowhere and then overachieved and made it to the World Series but lost. But still, it was impressive for them to do what they did. And I think this year's Diamondbacks would be the Cubs. I'm not sure if the Cubs can get past the Brewers, Dodgers, or Phillies, but if they were to get hot with Pete Crow Armstrong and Seiya Suzuki in the pitching, they would be the equivalent of what the Diamondbacks were that year. Like a good team, but no one really expects them to beat the top 3. Especially when the Braves and the Phillies and Dodgers were so good back then, and the Padres. And down goes Ohtani on strikes looking. All right, let's go to the top of the 8th inning and see who's up next here for the Reds. Next up for the Reds, second baseman in the 9-hole, 1 for 2 with a K, Matt McClain. Batting second, 0 for 2 with a base on ball and a K, center fielder TJ Friedel. And batting third, 0 for 3 with 2 Ks, right fielder Noel V. Marte. I hope the Red Sox end up beating the Yankees. That wouldn't hurt my feelings one bit. Just like the Astros not being in the playoffs, that doesn't hurt my feelings either. I think Red Sox Blue Jays would be a better series rather than Yankees Blue Jays in my opinion. So hopefully the Red Sox can do what they did today and find a way to win. And we'll find out if the Tigers can close it out or if Jose Ramirez and Steven Kwan got something left in their bag to be able to extend that series. But, there's a very good possibility the Tigers and Red Sox win tomorrow and they advance. And then we'll know that it'll be Tigers, Mariners, and then Red Sox, Blue Jays. And those are pretty fucking even if that's what we get. I think Guardians and Mariners would be even as well. But Yankees and Blue Jays would be still a good series, but it's kind of cool to be able to see teams, that weren't very good over the last few years. Red Sox typically in last or second to last, and I did predict that they would be much better this year, and that addition of Bregman was huge, and the decision to bring in Yoshida as a DH pinch hitter was the reason that they won. And again, that's great managing, by the Red Sox in that particular matchup today against the Yankees. So. Yeah, I'm doing every Mariner game the rest of the way. It's just unfortunately I probably won't be able to do Ducks and Indiana and the Mariner game unless they don't overlap. And then same thing with the Buccaneers and Seahawks and the Mariner game. I would love to do, both. I would love to do 2 streams on Saturday and 2 on Sunday, even though my voice would probably be pretty tired. But yeah, we've done 155 out of the 162 games, and the only games that we missed were 1 a month for WWE. But now WWE is linked with ESPN. They want me to pay $30 a month, so we probably won't be doing WWE on the channel anymore unless things change and they have a cheaper option and whatnot. Which I feel kind of bad for the wrestling crew that we would get together once a month to watch WWE, but I'm not going to pay $30 a month. Now you can watch it on a streaming link, but then you'll be 15 to 30 seconds behind, and you don't really want to be behind on WWE. So next year it'll probably be every game. We won't miss anything unless I'm sick or something's going on with my mental health. But I've been pretty good for the last 2 years with my pup, so no one's going to do more Mariner games than me. And again, I did get a email from YouTube today congratulating on the success of the channel and the numbers and the views. And we are a top 20% channel, based on, partners through YouTube where you can actually make money, through your channel and being established and whatnot. So that felt good, that we're starting to climb higher and higher, and we're getting closer to 5 million views on the channel, which is very exciting. And once that happens, we'll talk about it on the channel as well. And obviously going from, 22,000 to 25,000 subs, 50, 75, and the long-term goal of 100K. And I know we'll get there, especially if the Mariners and the Ducks win the pennant and the Natty. That'll definitely take this channel to heights that we've never seen before. Pitch is low and at the knees. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Vesia to McLean. 2-2 pitch in play. And a nice hit there by McLean. He's having himself a decent day for the Reds. Nice single there. Next up is TJ Friedel. First pitch from Alex Vesia to Friedel. Takes a strike looking right down the middle. 0-1 count. Top of the 8th, 10-2 Dodger lead. But it shows you, with the Dodgers, how different they are from, the Yankees and other teams that are, maybe hated, that have that long history. I think Dodgers and Cubs are a little bit more universally liked than the Yankees and whatnot. But just because the Yankees have money doesn't mean they're winning it every year, And again, if anything, they kind of choke, more times than not. So, we'll see what happens tomorrow. But, the Dodgers have this ability to turn it on, at the right time, even though the second half of their season wasn't really ideal. But again, watching this first game and moving forward, they have just as good of a chance as any team, even the Brewers and the Phillies, who are probably their biggest competition, as well as the Cubs, from preventing them making the World Series as the National League representative. It wouldn't shock me one bit if the Dodgers, again, get there. Now, there's going to be fans that want someone new, like the Cubs, because they're likable. right? And they haven't had that World Series run for, about 8-10 years, back when they won the World Series. But they're likable and they're fun to watch. They got cool uniforms and great history, and obviously you got the Brewers fan base that is very excited, but they don't know how far they're going to be able to go because they haven't really been this good before, right? And then the Phillies are the biggest threat to the Dodgers because they've been there, they've done that, and they've been so close of getting to the World Series and potentially being a team that maybe could win it all. They're right there. So, and they got great players on that roster as well, and they haven't really had a lot of movement on that roster the last few years. They are battle tested, and they are the Dodgers' biggest threat, the Philadelphia Phillies. So it wouldn't shock me if the Phillies make the World Series or the Dodgers, if I'm being honest. I would be shocked if it was the Brewers and Cubs, if I'm being real. I think that those teams are good, but to get past the Dodgers and Phillies would have to take almost a miracle. But we'll wait and see. Three-two pitch, fouled off towards that third base line. Top of the eighth, runner at first with no outs, 10-2 Dodger lead. Yeah, but if you're a Red Sox fan, you can't have that much hate, because the Dodgers are in the National League. The Yankees are your rival. So the hate shouldn't even be close. It's like us and the Astros, It's like you got teams that are in your own division where you have that main rivalry. If you're talking about a team that's on the opposite side, there's nothing really to hate over there. It's not like the Dodgers have robbed the Red Sox of a World Series recently in the last couple of years. They're just a great team, top to bottom. I think it's just more jealousy rather than, anything else. Safe at second. Top of the eighth, 10-2 Dodger lead. Next up is Marte. First pitch is high and inside from Vesia, 1-0 count. Vesia on the mound, Marte in the box. I think Mariners, Dodgers, Mariners, Phillies, Mariners, Brewers are probably that's most likely matchup. But again, we have to do a lot to be able to get to that point. And it's not like we've ever been to a World Series before. So last time we went to the playoffs was in 2022, and we did win a series against the Blue Jays, which a lot of people thought that we would have no chance to beat them. And this team is night and day better than that 2022 team. So this is probably the best team that the Mariners honestly have ever had in the team's history. So we should be able to make a deep run and hopefully make the World Series. Big swing and a miss. 1-1 strike to Marte from Vesia. 1-1 pitch, fouled off, low and at the hips. 1-2 strikes to Noel V. Marte. But it's nice to be able to see at least one team break out of the 4 matchups and the 8 teams, somebody getting more than 3 runs. And the Dodgers gained a lot of momentum against the Mariners, sweeping them at the end of the regular season. And they definitely look the most on point team out of all the teams that have played today. They look the strongest out of all the teams. And the Dodgers are probably a team that probably should have been in the wild card, probably should have been one of those teams with the bye. But obviously we know how good the Brewers and Phillies were this year. Pitch is inside. 2-2 strikes to Noel V. Marte. 2-2 pitch, low and at the knees. Count now is full. 3-2 strikes from Vesia to Marte. 3-2 pitch, fouled off, right down the middle. Count still is full for Alex Vesia. Marte in the box, and on deck is Miguel Andujar. 3-2 pitch, fouled off again. Count still is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes from Vesia to Marte. Three-two pitch, fouled off. 3 consecutive foul balls here by Marte. He's grinding. 4-seam fastball, and a slider. Off speed, 86 miles an hour by Vesia. And we're almost done with this particular matchup. Dodgers up by 8, imposing their will against a team that shouldn't be here in the postseason. But you have the Mets to thank for that meltdown. Would have been a funner matchup with the Mets and the Dodgers, no doubt about that. 3-2 pitch. Fouled off again. 3-2 pitch. And Marte with a walk. All right, next up is Miguel Andujar with runners at first and second and 1 out. Let's see if the Reds can get to 3 or 4 before this game is over. And it looks like Vesia's day is done. Dave Roberts said, I've seen enough of you. Let's see who the Dodgers are bringing in. Henriquez. Edgardo Enriquez is coming in. All right, Edgardo is coming in to face Miguel Andujar. And obviously Miguel is looking for an opportunity to hit a home run so he can be showered with $100 bills if he does. He actually had a really good year. I mean, if you actually look at his numbers, he actually had one of like a career year. It was a good year, but again, one player doesn't make a team. You know, you got Lindor, you got Pete Alonso, you got Juan Soto. You know, but again, you know, the pitching and the bullpen, and you know, there's got to be other things. And they spent a lot of money on their payroll. And again, remember at the beginning of the year, they had one of the best records in baseball. They were like 45-24, and you're like, wow. But then they had like the opposite record, you know, in the second half of the season, and that's what prevented them from, you know, making the playoffs. But it would have been more exciting to see Mets Dodgers at this point than Dodgers Reds. I mean, let's be real. Who do the Reds have that can actually compete? You got De La Cruz, and that's kind of it. You know, like, who else do you got? Like, you don't really have like, if you put the Mets and the Reds together, you still would lose, but then that might be closer to what the Dodger team is about, you know, based off talent. if you had like Ellie De La Cruz, Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and then you combine the pitching staffs, yeah, then maybe, you would still lose to the Dodgers, but then it would be closer, a little bit more exciting. Three-one pitch, fouled off, high and inside. Count now is full, 3 balls and 2 strikes to Miguel Andujar. I mean, the same thing would have happened if the Diamondbacks would have made the last spot too. They just get absolutely fucking destroyed. But just because you have a high payroll like the Mets doesn't mean that it's going to guarantee anything. You still got to be able to have good pitching, a good bullpen, a good manager, good chemistry. And Andujar with a walk. Dodgers having a little mini meltdown here in the pen. First pitch from Henriquez to Stewart, takes a strike looking, 0-1 count. Pitches high and inside. 2 balls and 1 strike to Sal Stewart. Two-one pitch, low and away. 3 balls and 1 strike to Sal Stewart, who's pinch hitting. And Edgardo Henriquez is having a fucking meltdown. Bases loaded with 1 out. I mean, just imagine if the Dodgers didn't hit so many home runs that they might actually be able to come back. Like if the score right now is like 5-2, they would be threatening at this point. But when you give up 2 homers to Ohtani, 2 to Teoscar, and 1 by Tommy Edman, what are you going to do? Three-one pitch, takes a strike looking, low and away. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes from Edgardo Henriquez to Sal Stewart. Three-two pitch, and that's a walk. Wow. Freebie run coming in again, and now it's 10-3. I mean, they're just walking player after player after player. I mean, obviously I wanted to be able to do a late game because then more people would be available. Obviously I would have rather done the Guardians and Tigers. That was my first choice, because that's who the Mariners play, but it was on at 10 a.m. So, and I don't know what the turnout would be if I did a stream at 10 a.m. That's not Mariners, so, I haven't really decided yet. I've already made the thumbnail for tomorrow for Dodgers Reds. Obviously, I know it's going to be the most lopsided, series. And if the Dodgers win today and they win tomorrow, then it's over. And then we just move on and whatnot. And then we can decide what we do after that on Thursday, if we do Thursday night football, or if we do baseball on Thursday and Friday while we wait for the Mariners. So, I mean, it's going to be a combination of, MLB playoffs and either Thursday night football or just MLB playoffs with the wild card. But haven't decided really yet, but at the moment, probably doing Dodgers and Reds again, since, the thumbnail is already made and, I already did all the prepping of the lineups and everything. I had to delete everything Mariners and to make room for all the Reds and the Dodger photos. So. Next up is Spencer Steer, 1-0 pitch, low and away. 2 balls and no strikes with bases loaded and 1 out to Spencer Steer. If Steer can hit a grand salami here, right, it would be 10-7, but even if he can get a double, it would be 10-5. And if they just had better pitching, out of Hunter Green, if he didn't give up 3 home runs early, maybe this game could be, somewhat a little bit closer and more competitive, but yeah, but too bad the Tigers and Guardians game wasn't, the last game, because that would have been the series that I would have preferred to have done. Then it would be my preferred choice would have been Cubs, Padres, and then probably Yankees and Red Sox, then this one. But, or maybe this one and then the Yankees and Red Sox. So I don't really enjoy watching those teams play, honestly. Like, it's cool that they have their rivalry and whatnot, but I don't know, it just doesn't really do it for me. 3-1 pitch, fouled off, high and inside. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Spencer Steer. Yeah, I like Red Sox more too, I mean, I do appreciate Aaron Judge, and what he does for baseball and whatnot. Obviously I ended up getting an Aaron Judge ball at a Mariner game. So I have some kind of, way I feel about Aaron, invested in one of his autographed rookie cards as well, as like an investment and whatnot. But, I definitely like watching the Red Sox play more than I do with the Yankees. And I don't know. That series just doesn't really do it for me. I'm happy that they hate each other and whatnot, but I don't know. Cubs and Padres is more interesting to me. More likable there. And a big hit up the middle, and that's going to bring home another. And now all of a sudden the game where it could have been 10-0, and now we're sitting at 10-4. Nice job by the Reds on battling back. And again, you're having a meltdown here in the pen. And Edgardo, you're gone, buddy. Next up is Ellie De La Cruz. And if De La Cruz can get a grand salami here, it'll be 10-8 with an inning to go. Nice comeback here by the Reds. Crazy, the Reds are putting up more runs than any other team that played today. But hopefully the Red Sox beat the Yankees tomorrow, so I don't have to see anything about them anymore. And, if the Tigers can eliminate the Guardians, so be it. That doesn't really bother me either way. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing that series go to a game 3, to see like, okay, who's going to win it? Guardians in, back-to-back games, or if the Tigers are going to be able to close it out. And, and then we'll kind of go from there. And the Cubs are going to have a very good chance of closing out the Padres tomorrow, in my opinion, also. So we could end up getting, the Tigers, the Cubs, and the Red Sox eliminating their opponents tomorrow. So the Reds are not going to win this game, but obviously they are making it interesting, at this point, after it was like a big blowout. And now the Reds have put up more runs than any team that played prior to them. So yeah, Dodgers bullpen is a problem. And there's going to be games where they're not going to be able to put up 10, right? And if you do this against the Phillies, you're going to lose. You do this against the Brewers, you're going to lose. You do it against the Cubs, you're going to lose. So again, great for them to get 10 and all those home runs, but you're not going to get 2 home runs out of Ohtani every day, and you're not going to get 2 out of Teoscar every day. So now we got to see if Dreyer can figure it out here. First pitch to Ellie De La Cruz. Low and at the knees, 1-0 count. That's why baseball is so interesting. Like, no matter how bad a team looks, all of a sudden, you can have a couple bad guys in the bullpen, and then all of a sudden the game is like kind of back in the mix, And again, if you didn't have so many home runs, and imagine if the score was 5-4 right now and the Dodgers had 5, they would be on the brink of losing this game, based off the bullpen. Bases loaded, you're only down by a run. You got De La Cruz in the box. and you got one more inning to go. So the Dodgers have to be very thankful that they got to 10 today, because if they would have gotten to 5 only, they probably would lose, unless they were able to, figure out the pen in the last inning. But the Reds are threatening here again. 2-1 pitch, fouled it off low and at the knees. 2 balls and 2 strikes to L.A. De La Cruz. Yeah, but also we weren't playing our best lineup, and that has something to do with it also. We had kind of a shitty lineup in those 3 games against the Dodgers. If we actually had something to play for, I don't think that we would have lost all those 3 games. I think that we would have won 2 out of 3, a bare minimum 1 out of 3, but I think we would have won 2 out of 3. If Naylor was healthy and you had Julio and Cal and everyone was, good to go, I think that it would have been much different. And if Wu didn't have the pec issue, here's a big hit. And no, it's a walk. And Andujar scores from third, and another walk brings in another run with bases loaded, and now it's 10-5. Wow, look at this. And again, this is the thing that the Dodger fans were hoping that wasn't going to get exposed. So if you're the Phillies and if you're the Brewers and the Cubs, you know exactly what you need to do to beat this Dodger team. Just wait for the starter to go out and wait for the pen to come in and hope that the Dodgers don't have a shitload of runs at that point. This game was looking like the worst game of the day, and now this game is starting to look like the more interesting, game, or one of the more interesting games of the day. 1-0 pitch, high and away. 2 balls and no strikes to Tyler Stevenson. Crazy how it went from 10-0 to 10-5 in a heartbeat. And they still got bases loaded with 1 out. So again, if they keep walking guys, it's going to go to 10-6, 10-7, and then eventually someone's going to hit like a 2-run bomb, a 3-run jack, or a grand salami. I mean, could you imagine if the Reds actually tie it up 10-10? Two-one pitch, low and at the hips. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Dreyer to Stevenson. Dodger fans are just praying that they don't give up the grand salami here, because obviously with the momentum, if it gets to 10-9, you would have to think the Reds would legitimately have a shot. Pitch fouled off, high and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Dreyer to Stevenson. No, I think if we had all of our guys, that we had 0 chance of sweeping the Dodgers. They're, getting hot at the right time. I think the most that we would have been able to win was 2 out of 3 if we had something to play for. But the fact that we didn't have anything to play for was the doom of us in that 3-game set. And that one's fouled back behind the plate to the Capital One sign. 2 balls and 2 strikes from Dreyer to Stevenson. Bases loaded with 1 out, and it was 10-0. Now it's 10-5. They got 2 runs in the 7th and 3 here in the 8th. Let's see if they can add a few more. Pitches low and at the knees. Count is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes from Dreyer to Stevenson. If they get another walk here, it'll be 10-6 with bases loaded. Dreyer on the mound. Tyler Stevenson in the box. 3-2 pitch. Fouled off. Count still is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes to Tyler Stevenson. Dodger fans can't even look. 3-2 pitch, fouled off, high and away. Count still is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes from Dreyer to Stevenson. 3-2 pitch, fouled off again. Holy moly. Jack Dreyer on the mound. Stevenson in the box. Fouls that one off. And Stevenson strikes out swinging, and that is 2 away. Wow. We were thinking that maybe that was going to continue to go, but a great at-bat there. And then next up, third baseman Ke'Bryan Hayes, the former Pirate. See if he can do some damage with bases loaded and 2 outs. That's the biggest cheer from that Dodger crowd that we've heard in maybe 3 innings. First pitch from Dreyer to Hayes, fouls it off right down the middle, 0-1 count. Dreyer on the mound, Ke'Bryan Hayes in the box. When you go from 10-0 to 10-5, obviously it's looking a little bit better at this point. And it shows you how quick a lead can evaporate if your bullpen isn't good. And on top of that, if you can have bases loaded and you start walking guys and they just come in with freebies from third base, and you continuously do that before that big play happens, it might be an end here. 0-1 pitch in play, and Hayes pops out, and the Dodgers finally get out of the jam. But not after they give up 3 in that inning and 2 in the 7th, and now it's 10-5 Dodgers. I mean, imagine if it was 5-5 right now. It could go either way, but... All right, let's go to the bottom of the 8th, and we'll see if the Dodgers can add anything on. Next up for the Dodgers, 1 for 3 with a base on ball and a K, shortstop Mookie Betts. Batting second, 1 for 3 with a run and a base on ball, first baseman Freddie Freeman. And batting third, 0 for 3 with a run, base on ball, and 3 Ks, Max Muncy. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on the dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's go. 56 subs to go to 22,400. All right, let's see if Mookie Betts can get something going here with the Dodgers here late. But a game that ended up seemingly over, within the first few innings, ended up actually kind of getting interesting here late. First pitch, high and away from Ashcraft, 1-0 count. 1-0 pitch, takes a strike looking right down the middle. 1 ball and 1 strike to Mookie Betts. 1-1 pitch, fouled off right down the middle. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Ashcraft to Betts. Graham Ashcraft, pitch is inside. 2 balls, 2 strikes from Graham Ashcraft to Mookie Betts. Two-two pitch, and Mookie with a single to center. Nice hit there by Mookie Betts. Next up is Freddie Freeman. First pitch to Freddie Freeman, low and away with the cutter, 1-0 count. One-0 pitch, takes a strike looking right down the middle. 1 ball and 1 strike to Freddie Freeman, who was absolutely electric in the playoffs last year, especially in the World Series. 1-1 pitch, fouled off, high and inside. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Ashcraft to Freeman. We're in the bottom of the 8th. 10-5 Dodger lead after a meltdown in the pen by the Dodgers in the 7th and the 8th. That scored 5 runs for Cincinnati. And again, if the Dodgers didn't get 2 homers by Ohtani, 2 by Teoscar, and 1 by Tommy Edman, and the score was 5-5 right now, you know, the Reds would legitimately have a shot to win this game. But that wasn't the case. Freeman with a big single to right, back-to-back hits by Mookie and Freddie, the first ballot Hall of Famers, doing their job and stepping up in the moments that the team needs them the most. Next up is Max Muncy. And sometimes in this situation, you know, when Muncy is healthy, he would go yard and obviously, you know, kind of end the game. But Muncy has been battling injuries for the last few years and doesn't really have the same type of timing. And also remember, Will Smith, you know, the all-star catcher, obviously is not available. So imagine if they had Will Smith with this lineup on top of all the pieces that they have. Because Rortvedt is nowhere near being as good as Will Smith. You know, Will Smith might actually be the closest thing to Cal Raleigh, and he's not even on Cal's level. But, you know, based on, you know, the player that he is, it's a big loss for the Dodgers. 0-1 pitch, fouled off right down the middle to Muncy. No balls and 2 strikes from Ashcraft to Mad Max Muncy. Runners at first and second, Mookie and Freddie with no outs. 10-5 Dodger lead. Bochy for the M's. Yeah, I would take Bochy for the Mariners, but I mean, obviously we have Dan Wilson's right now, so that's not going to happen. But yeah, but if you know, if we didn't make the playoffs this year and Dan Wilson was fired and Bochy was signed by the Mariners, would I like that? Yeah, I would like that. 0-2 pitch popped up, and that is 1 away. Down goes Muncy. Next up is Teoscar Hernandez. 3 for 4 with 2 home runs. He can't hit a 3rd home run, can he? It's possible. First pitch low and away with a cutter. 1-0 count. Graham Ashcraft on the mound. Teoscar Hernandez in the box, who has been absolutely electric like Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, people just don't understand. You know, some people have dreams and goals, and some people wish they did. You know, some people actually have the talent, you know, to do something that would be on radio or TV, and some people are too blind to recognize the talent that people have on YouTube. People on YouTube are better than people on podcasts and on TV. I mean, that's just very clear. You know, look to see what you see on ESPN and Fox Sports and CBS, and you know, tell me if those shows are actually worth watching. And really, the only shows that were worth watching, you know, from a few years ago might have been Good Morning Football with Nate and Kay, but they're no longer there. And then obviously the Pat McAfee show, but once he sold out to ESPN, it's not the same anymore. And those were really the only 2 shows that were worth a damn, unless you like people arguing over takes that are stupid, like the Cowboys going to the Super Bowl and things like that with like Stephen A. and Skip Bayless and those type of people. But that type of sports talk is dead. But, again, you do get people that enjoy that type of thing, like maybe that guy right there. First pitch from Ashcraft to Rojas, fouls it off low and away, 0-1 count. It's funny too, because, you get people that are haters that criticize, but how many people on planet Earth could do the things that people do on YouTube, like myself and others? It's not something that anybody can do. It's like, not only do you have to have the talent and have the equipment, but you also have to have the drive, and you have to have the knowledge and the skill set, to be an artist, with the thumbnails, have the expertise to be able to know all the players and all the names, and actually be entertaining. It's a lot harder than people think. If it was so easy to be a star on YouTube, everyone would do it. And of course, a lot of people try, but a lot of people fail. 1-1 pitch, fouled off, low and away. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Miguel Rojas. Yeah, it's a lot of reading and a lot of film, but again, I've always been kind of built this way. And again, I try to pride myself on Rojas now getting hit by a pitch. Now we got bases loaded with 2 outs, and now the Reds are having a meltdown of their own. But I try to be an expert, on every league. And you got to understand how hard that is. NHL, MLB, NFL, college football, NBA, NASCAR, wrestling, AEW, and WWE. Like, think about how much reading and film study and, everything that you have to keep up with. I mean, it's hard enough to keep up with one team, your favorite team, whether that be Mariners or whatever. But imagine trying to be on that level with all the teams. I mean, that takes a hell of a lot of an effort. And that's why I think we have kind of a competitive edge over a lot of the other channels, because they're not willing to do the work that we do here. I feel like we definitely have more intelligent fans, on this channel. Like if we did Sports Jeopardy against the big, channels, we would blow them out of the water. It's one thing to be popular, or an entertainer, but it's also different to actually have knowledge, and to be able to understand things without bias, to be able to call it right down the middle, no matter if it's your team or the opponent. And I think a lot of channels have that hard problem. They're very biased with their favorite players and teams, and they're not willing to give credit where credit is, need to be given, where credit is due. If someone is doing something amazing on the other side and not even acknowledging it, that's not good. You want to make sure that you're acknowledging greatness, even if it's the opponent doing it to your favorite team, Megan in the building. How are you? Nice. Congratulations with that. Bottom of the 8th inning, 10-5 Dodgers. And as we've seen a meltdown happen with the Dodger bullpen, you're starting to see a similar type of meltdown here as well with the Reds. And again, for a game that looked like it was, already over within the first 3 innings, when you go up 5-0 and you go up 8-0. I mean, the score was 8-0 in the 6th, and then all of a sudden you got 2 more runs in the 7th by the Dodgers, but 5 by the Reds. Good for them. But now you have another meltdown on the opposite side here in the pen for Ashcraft. 0-1 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Andy Pages. Graham Ashcraft on the mound, Pages in the box with bases loaded. Yeah, and I think that's one problem that a lot of podcasts and TV networks have. They think that by just having a former athlete that's good enough, or someone that screams and yells is good enough. It's not, and again, there's a lot more talent, I believe, on YouTube than there is on the networks and on podcasts. Just because you're a former player, doesn't mean that you're going to be good on the microphone. It's like wrestlers. Anybody can fucking wrestle, right? Some are going to be better than others with their athleticism, but not every single elite wrestler can talk on the mic. And that's what really separates, the guys that are good at wrestling from guys that are legends and icons, guys that can spit and talk shit on the mic with the best of them, be creative and flashy, but be funny and entertaining, and, and know how to talk with the best of them. And again, not everyone is built to be on the microphone, and that's very clear. 1-2 pitch, high and inside, 2 balls and 2 strikes to Andy Pages. Yeah, but the thing is, the hot takes for ratings are terrible. They're not even real. They're not even real takes that they believe in. It's stuff that the producer wants them to talk about. But again, when they end up being so fake, with these takes and these posts, it's just trying to, grab people as we get that force out at second, and we're at the end of the 8th inning. It's like, any of these, ESPNs and Fox Sports and, and a lot of the different groups that are out there, they do a top 5 quarterback list, right? And Jalen Hurts isn't on it. You already know it's bullshit. It's or they do a top 10 list and then Lamar's not on it. They know exactly what they're doing, because they know as soon as they see the fans that notice that they purposely left out someone just to get the people to say, oh, your list is garbage, they already got you, because that's the whole reason that they did it. And I don't like that fake type of sports take. You have to try to do some fake poll just to gain your audience, because no one will engage with you. But if you actually talk based on how you really feel, and a lot of those people are super lazy. They end up watching people on YouTube and other, locations, and they're not even smart enough to come up with their own original material for nicknames and catchphrases, where they have to spy, on other YouTube channels and other channels that are out there to be able to make themselves look smarter and more clever, and more, intelligent. And in reality, it's they're trying to cut corners, and not put in the time, because I think a lot of people on TV realize that the people on YouTube are putting in the hard work. They are watching games from beginning to end. They do have an idea of how things are going, rather than you're on TV, you get handed a script, you look at the teleprompter, you read what you are supposed to read, from them, and then you go over these bullshit takes that nobody even believes in, but I quit watching a lot of those shows years ago. And again, the best ones were Good Morning Football, when Nate and Kay were on it with Peter and Kyle. That show's not good anymore. And it's still watchable, but it's not the same chemistry. And then the Pat McAfee show used to be good until it sold out to ESPN. And I feel like it's still watchable, but it doesn't have the same feel as it did when it was kind of more underground. And, it is what it is. Top of the 9th, 10-5 Dodger lead. And we got Trinan coming into the game to try to close it out for the Dodgers. And we got McClain in the box. First pitch to McClain, low and away with a sweeper, 1-0 count. But it's kind of crazy, how bad sports, talk TV has come. It was, ESPN was good when Stuart Scott was alive, when they were doing highlights and they were the only, channel to do highlights. That's when they were good, with broadcasters and their content. But since that era ended and everyone got access to the highlights, the people that they had on that network obviously declined, the type of talent, and again, the shows that were presented, it's, but again, that's also good for people like me and others on YouTube, because they realize how bad it is on, podcasts and TV, shows, where if you actually are, entertaining and smart, and you're on YouTube, you can actually gain a better audience and get more respect than a lot of these people that are on TV. Who's going to go out of their way to watch a Stephen A. Smith channel? You got to be literally, if that's a channel that you're going out of your way to watch, and that's what you think is good, you're just getting brainwashed by someone that, that may or may not really understand, sports, and more of an entertainer rather than someone that actually has sports knowledge. 2-1 pitch, high and inside. 3 balls and 1 strike to Matt McClain. 3-1 pitch, big swing and a miss right down the middle. Count now is full. 3 balls and 2 strikes from Trinan to McClain. And I wish, there were some shows that were exciting for me to watch, but again, there's, nothing really that piques my interest. I would rather just watch games and watch film myself. And I don't watch anybody on YouTube, I don't go out of my way to spy on any other channels and steal their content or their ideas. I'm too busy trying to focus on my own. And that's the honest truth. And down he goes. And that is 1 away. TJ with a $5. Appreciate you. Stacks. Rax with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Appreciate you. Another 5 on the dono train. You are a real one as well. I appreciate the support. First pitch to Friedel is high and away. Takes a strike looking. 0-1 count. 0-1 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike from Trinan to Friedel. And I also feel too, like, depending on what sports they're, kind of covering, there's not a lot of people that have the talent to do like anything and everything. Most people are specialized in like one thing, sometimes 2. Like, where they just do one team or one sport, and that's fine. If that's what your expertise is and that's what you feel comfortable doing, that's great. But the only way to become great, right, is to be able to put yourself in a uncomfortable position and to be able to learn something that might be out of your realm. And then once you're able to go outside of your comfort zone and then you're able to master that and then go to something else and master that, then you really become dangerous, as far as, having that expertise to be able to do anything. 1-2 pitch, big swing and a miss, and down goes Friedel, and that is 2 away. I started off, doing the channel, doing reaction videos, so I didn't even do play-by-play to start off, on YouTube. So then I had to, kind of get used to the flow on how to like call a basketball game, a baseball, a football, a hockey, a NASCAR, a wrestling, pay-per-view or PLE. And let me tell you, even if you have skills on the microphone, that is shit is not something that you just learn overnight. There definitely is a period of time where you have to hone in on your skills, just like a wrestler on the microphone. It's not like you just wake up one day and you're amazing on the microphone. Some people are blessed with natural talent, but you still can hone in on your greatness. First pitch to Gavin Lux, takes a strike looking right down the middle. 0-1 count, and Lux is the former Dodger, so this will be interesting. 0-1 pitch, low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike to Gavin Lux. One pitch, takes a strike looking right down the middle. 1 ball and 2 strikes from Trinan to Lux. I'm glad that you found us as well. Almost done, honey. My pup is in here. She said, Dad, I'm hungry. Hang out with me. Yeah. Cleveland is rumored, though, to start Dylan Gabriel this weekend. So kind of crazy to have 4 Oregon quarterbacks possibly starting. Gabriel for the Browns, Mariota, as that's in play, and Lux gets a single against his former team. Mariota filling in for, obviously, Jaden Daniels with his injury, and then you got Bo Nix, on Denver, and then Herbert, obviously, with the Chargers, as you can see my pup. She walked past. She said, Dad, you're not done yet? Almost done. First pitch from Trinan to Andujar, low and away, 1-0 count. Great effort there by the Dodgers, but it bounced off his wrist there. That probably hurt. Yeah, she left the room, but I'll see if I can grab her and she can make an appearance. Best thing in my life, is her and this channel. A lot of time and energy and effort. But being able to hang out with her every day and spend time with you guys every day is, it's like a dream come true. A lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of sacrifice. 1-1 pitch in play. And Andujar grounds out to third, and that is the ball game. And again, at least the Reds, ended up making it interesting here late. She's an American Staffy. So she's an American Staffordshire Terrier, which is kind of like in the Pitty family. So she's like 25% Pitty and 75% American Staffordshire. So the dad was like half Pitty, half Staffy, and then the mom was just Staffy and whatnot. So let me see if I can grab her real quick. Paisley, Come here. I don't know if she'll come or not. Let's see if she will. But at least the Reds, made it interesting. And who would have thought after being down 8-0 that they would get 5, even though the Dodgers got 2 more. But the Reds outscored every other team that played today. So we know the Reds are terrible and whatnot. But let me see if I can grab her real quick. Unfortunately, she went back to the couch and she's all like snuggled up. And no, don't worry about the distraction. Anything that has to do with my pup is never a distraction or nothing negative. It's a big part of my life and whatnot. So, but hopefully we'll be able to have her come through at some point, and you guys will be able. I usually try to, when she's in here, I usually try to be able to make a moment, with her and whatnot, but yeah, next time. But I appreciate the support. And again, at least this game got a little bit more interesting late. And then again, more than likely, we'll end up doing this game tomorrow. The Dodgers will advance. And then we'll figure out, where we go from, obviously, the game tomorrow. We have an option of doing the Rams and the Niners on Thursday over baseball. I guess it kind of just depends on who ends up, advancing tomorrow. Like if we get the teams that won today, Tigers and Red Sox and Dodgers and then the Cubs all advance, then we'll kind of figure out what we decide to do. But that might not happen tomorrow. We might have some of those teams that lost that win. So, but realistically, we'll probably do Dodgers again, just based off the time. It's the last game of the night for us to just kind of vibe and hang out. And then we'll kind of go from there. And obviously, we're patiently waiting for the Mariners. But I can't go 4 days with doing nothing. I have to keep busy. And obviously, I have bills to pay and, conversations to be able to have, some, content behind it and whatnot. So love you guys, and I appreciate you guys very much. Final score, my dad is happy. Dodgers 10, Reds 5. And again, we'll be live tomorrow. More than likely, same time, same place for Dodgers and Reds game number 2. And I got one question for you. Who talk sports like us? Your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics. Shout out to Dave and TJ with the Dono Love. Appreciate you. And I'm out. Gang.